যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়ার কালে কেউ ফিরে না যায় তবে পথের কাটা তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে তুই রক্ত মাখা চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে
Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we have with us Mr. Varun Sanyal, an MMA fighter and also son of someone we really like, of the favorite historian and economist of ours, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal. So hi Varun, thanks a lot for making time for us.
No, thank you for having me. It's been long overdue, and I know that you've asked me quite a while back, but with traveling and training, I was caught up. But thank you so much for having me.
What does keep you busy the most, MMA or your other work stuff?
I mean, MMA is basically work. So MMA is full time now. So
I see.
Yeah, I'd say training. Honestly, more than the training in Delhi specifically is the traffic. That's what keeps me busy. Because I'm stuck on the road. It takes me about, I think in terms of traveling, I travel 3 to 4 hours every single day to get to training. Because, I don't train in Delhi. I train in Gurgaon.
Okay.
So get from Delhi to Gurgaon every day, especially like in the morning, peak hour. Oh my goodness, that's a fight on its own.
Right. I have been to Delhi only like 2 or 3 times in my life, so I don't really know how serious is the pollution problem. Like, is your life expectancy going down by living in Delhi? And then how are you in a sport like MMA while breathing such bad air? How does it work?
Well, I mean, I think it has different, like basically different points in the year. The AQI gets better or worse. So, for example, during Diwali, up until about Jan, it was honestly really bad. Like, I cannot defend it at all. It was to the point where it was harming me. I couldn't train properly. I was getting sick very often.
I see.
Especially, I couldn't do any outdoor training because, you might as well just smoke a pack of cigs. So, it does definitely affect you. So, one thing that at least, fortunately, our coach has done is install a air purifier at the gym, and then of course at home I have an air purifier. But right now it's actually quite clear. I think this is like a record low for Delhi. So
I see.
Hey, hopefully it stays this way.
Yeah. Some of our audience members are saying your audio is a little lower than mine. Is there any way to increase it? Can you get closer to the mic or something?
Oh, right. Yeah. Is that better?
This is louder. Yeah.
Sorry, I just come closer to the camera.
So we will get into your MMA stuff a lot more, but I have to ask, you come from a family of lineage of freedom fighters, revolutionaries, and then an economist who's basically a rock star in the sort of a pop culture icon in the world of politics, and then you are an MMA fighter of all things, and your brother is a musician. What's going on in this lineage? What is the Sanyal mindset? What do you guys eat and drink? How is a family like this generation after generation?
In terms of eating and drinking, it's a strictly non-veg household. We're allergic to vegetables, so strictly non-veg. But if you hear my dad speak publicly, and I'm sure many people have on this stream. He always talks about taking risk, and he always talks about stepping out of your comfort zone, doing different things.
Right.
Following your passion.
Right.
So look, I don't want to say that everyone can do it. Obviously, we're fortunate enough that we can, but
Right.
yeah, I suppose that's always been the sort of culture that's been there at home. Whatever it is that we wanted to do, as long as we pursue it with 100% effort, we've got the support. So, for example, when I first started MMA, my dad
Yeah.
doesn't know. He didn't know whether I wanted to do this full time. It's just something I'm doing on the side. So for him, he wasn't all in. But once I started competing, once I actually started, competing internationally, then yeah, 100% support. So same thing for my brother. My brother's a musician. Initially, he's just playing around on his laptop, making beats and whatnot. But then he actually started selling his beats. He's actually started working with different artists. Then, of course, my dad is going to support him. So, yeah, that's the sort of mindset. Just step out of your comfort zone and risks, I suppose. Because my dad
Right.
himself, he's done that in his own right.
How did your mom take it? Since after all, it's still MMA. It's not just following any passion. It has health risks. It has CTE risks. It has brain health risks.
Well, to be honest, if you ask my mom, she'll probably tell you I'm already mentally damaged. But I drive rapidly.
Right.
No, but jokes aside, yeah, no, it's never easy for a mom to watch her son fight. Right? So she doesn't.
Yeah.
She doesn't at all. You only watch the highlights after. I think again because she knows this is what I want to do, and she knows I'm passionate
Right.
about it. As long as I come home safe, I think that she's fine. But yeah, no, of course, it's never going to be easy for her.
Right. So you are fighting in the MFN league right now, right?
No. I
Or
train with
you've
a
quit
lot
them?
of
Okay.
MMA fighters,
Okay.
but no, not yet. So that's still pro.
Okay.
I'm still fighting in the amateur scene.
Right.
I'm fighting
Yeah.
the IMAFs, and yeah, well, obviously MFN is the big show in India. So when I
Yeah.
do this Grand Pro, that's
Yeah.
that's the first promotion I want to get checked off. Or
Right.
if another big one comes up, then fight there.
Right. Anshul Jubilee also got into UFC from MFN only, right? Or was he in Brave? I forgot.
No. So he was in MFN, and then
Right.
so basically he got a good record in MFN. He built a nice
Right.
record.
Yeah.
Then he got scouted for the road to UFC,
Right.
and the road to UFC is basically a tournament within Asia. So all of Asia's best fighters, and I think in the year they fought 3 times, and yeah,
Yeah.
the winner of the tournament gets a UFC contract, and then and that's how he's now in the UFC. So
Right.
yeah, everyone who wants to discredit Anshul Jubilee, I see a lot of memes online saying, oh, he doesn't deserve to be in the UFC and whatnot. Hey, the guy won the tournament. He deserves to be there.
Yeah.
Believe me, it's good. The guy
Right.
deserves to be in the UFC.
Right. Do records are the records the only thing that matters here, or is there an importance for a manager as well? Good manager.
It's a mix of so many things, but that's a very good question. And I talk a lot about this when I go to different gyms, and speak to younger fighters now. Yes, fight records matter, but it also matters how you market yourself, right? Like if let's say you're a boring fighter and no one wants to watch you fight, then what's the point? You could be amazing. You could be like putting people to sleep, but if no one knows who
Yeah.
you are, then,
Yeah.
then what doesn't matter? And this is true for anything, right? Like if you have a great product, but you don't market it, what's the use? So
Yeah.
that's one. Management is huge, and I'll tell you why. So let's take Anshul Jubilee, for example. His record is 7-1. Okay, he fought the Australian that he recently got that he lost to. He was also 7-1.
Right.
I'll be honest, the opponents that Anshul Jubilee faced, if you compare that to the level of opponents that his Australian opponent faced
Yeah.
is different. So just because they have the same record, both 7-1,
Yeah.
the Anshul 7-1 is not the same as the other guy 7-1. So
Yeah.
that's where a manager has to step in and sort of assess. Okay, who has this
Hmm.
guy fought? What is his skill set? You can't just say, oh, they're two 7-1 guys. Let's just put them together. Also,
Right.
stylistically, do they match up? There's a
Right.
whole thing that goes behind it. You can't just take every fight. As much as these fighters say, "Oh yeah, I'll fight anyone, anytime," they never
Hmm.
do. They never do, and of course they won't because this is their career on the line. So yeah,
Right.
there's many factors that go into it.
Hmm. How did you get into MMA? When did you decide specifically MMA?
Specifically MMA. Okay, so I've talked about this, but I watched pro wrestling growing up,
Hmm.
and I loved all of them. Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
That he was in TNA at the time.
Yeah.
Then Brock Lesnar, right? Brock
Hmm.
Lesnar, he jumped and he joined the UFC.
Yeah.
So I started watching. I was like, man, this is cool.
Okay.
That's really cool.
So basically,
So
because of Brock Lesnar.
yeah, Brock Lesnar, and then yeah, once I started watching, my God, like Anderson Silva was the hot guy at the time. So my
Hmm.
God, like you watch Anderson Silva, I think anyone watches Anderson Silva, they'll fall in love with MMA. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, from there, I decided I'd start training, and again fell in love, and here we are many years later.
Hmm. So when did you first realize that WWE is fake? Did you know it all along?
Well, okay, so there's two things to that. Well,
Yeah.
I to this day I'm a massive, massive WWE fan, and
Hmm.
I will never call it fake. I will not. It's not
Yeah.
fake. It's scripted and it's choreographed, but it's
Yeah.
not fake. The
Right.
bumps those guys take, the the moves that they do, that stuff is
Yeah.
not easy. So I won't call it fake.
Yes.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think you know what really killed it for me when I was younger. I went on the TV channel guide.
Hmm.
Okay, the TV channel guide. It always gives you a
Yeah.
description of shows that
Yeah.
you're about to watch. And on the
Yeah.
TV channel guide, it said this is choreographed. That broke my heart. Broke my heart right there. I
How old
was
were
like,
you
man, what?
at that point?
I might have been like 9 or
I
10 years
see.
old, and
Damn.
that broke my heart. So I was like, what do you mean the Undertaker's not real?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me Khali didn't actually squish Rey Mysterio to death? Like, come on. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I realized. There.
So then what grew your interest in real martial arts?
In well, yeah. So real martial arts again through Brock Lesnar, then watching the Rocky Balboa films,
Right.
and more. I think the one where I was like, wow, this is really cool, is
Hmm.
when Sushil Kumar won his silver medal in London, because I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, like you're always so used to seeing like your Floyd Mayweathers and these Western martial artists, right, doing
Yeah.
well. But then suddenly you have like an Indian who's just killing it. Like he's a world class wrestler. So then, yeah,
Right.
uh, naturally my interest grew.
Right. So your father was kind of involving you consciously in these sports, or was it for any sport, or was it specifically for these
Uh,
sports?
no, in fact, he was quite against me doing this.
Hmm.
When Sushil Kumar had won the silver, I told him, Baba, I want to start wrestling,
Oh.
and he was like, he never said no. I'll take that this much. He
Hmm.
never said no, but he always like said he said everything but no, but he basically swayed me away from it. So he said, oh
Right.
yeah, you might get hurt. Oh, okay,
Hmm.
you're playing cricket right now. After the season gets over, then we'll talk about it. And then we just never spoke about it. So
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I suppose he never really put me into it. I actually had to. Once I joined the army in Singapore for 2 years, I
Hmm.
started paying for my own classes, and that's how I got
Hmm.
started. Otherwise, there was no way he was going to pay for my classes.
I see. Interesting. So basically, for the safety purpose reasons, or
Yeah, I think part of it was the safety, but also at the time, like if you look at how, if you look at the image of martial arts in the past, it was all these
Hmm.
like, your Mike Tysons and like basically saying,
Hmm.
I'm going to eat your children and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I suppose, I
Yeah.
suppose that was his image of it. Now that, he's actually been exposed to the industry, and he sees that, you can train it. See, at the time, he didn't know I want to be competitive, but he
Hmm.
knows that you can train it as a skill. You can train it just
Yeah.
to learn how to defend yourself, keep fit,
Yeah.
and whatnot. I think that changed. Also, he
Right.
did Taekwondo himself. He's a Taekwondo black belt himself.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this whole thing came from.
Yeah. So he has a black belt in Taekwondo, and he knows kayaking as well, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Certified
He got a
kayaker,
license.
one of the first in
Yeah.
India. One of
What
the
was
first in
your
India.
first day like in the MMA gym? How old were you at that point?
So I actually started relatively late.
Hmm.
I started 18, right? So I mean, I stayed late, but I mean, Adesanya, Leon, these guys started around then as well. But
Right.
first day, like, death. That's how I felt. Like
Hmm.
I remember I couldn't even get through the warm ups. It was that bad. Like
Right.
I thought I'd go in there immediately, knocking people out
Hmm.
left, right, and center, dumping people on their head.
Hmm.
No, I couldn't even get through the warm up. It was super brutal. I wasn't even used to front rolling and doing cartwheels and all these things. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd gassed out. So I think the first month or two was just me getting used to the warm up. Then after I
Hmm.
got past the warm up and my body got used to the movements, only then I was able to actually learn the martial arts techniques.
Right. But you were pretty fit at that point anyway, right? From playing cricket, but that didn't come
Yeah,
in
I mean,
use.
it's a different type of fitness. See, at the time I was doing powerlifting. I was very into
I see.
powerlifting
I see.
and cricket. Yeah, like you said, like I
Right.
played a lot of cricket, but yeah, it's a completely different skill. Like cricket, you're not having to like
Hmm.
grab another guy and bring him to the
Right.
mat. You're not doing all these flips and rolls and constantly
Right.
scrambling. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
it's different movements, different type of
Right.
fitness. At the time, like I like to share the story. At the
Hmm.
time, I was, let's say, 86 kilos, and I was very strong.
Okay.
Honestly, for a 17, 18-year-old, I was pretty
Yeah.
strong. So I
Hmm.
thought this would be very easy. Okay, and
Hmm.
I suppose the way I carried myself, it really shined through.
Hmm.
So the coach puts me up against a woman half my size.
Hmm.
Uh, and now I realize that she's a professional MMA fighter. At the time, I had no
Right.
idea. So
Hmm.
I'm playing around and whatnot, and she just flipped me over her head, like completely flipped me
Right.
over her head. And
Right.
yeah, that was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. So
Hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are, what sporting background you have. It's a
Hmm.
completely different type of fitness.
Right. And people who don't know how to fight, or people who don't know how to fight specific martial arts, have no idea how this works. They think any fitness is going to help them in in a fight situation.
I mean, look, having a baseline fitness obviously helped. Like, if had I
Yeah.
not had a powerlifting or cricket background, it probably would have been worse.
Yeah.
But people overestimate their fighting ability so much.
Yeah.
It's actually absurd. Like, people think that,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
I'll
oh,
just
if
get
you run,
angry and no one. Yeah.
yeah, I see red. I see
Yeah.
red. You don't understand me, man. In the streets, it's different. Dude, in the streets, it's not different, all right? Like, just people will say, like, yeah, in the streets, I can poke you in the eyes, I can kick you in the
Yeah.
nuts. Like, yeah, I can do that as well, and I can choke
Yeah.
you out. Like, so
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know what this whole thing is.
Yeah.
People seriously overestimate their abilities, and
Right.
that's why I always encourage people to learn, because
Right.
one day you mess with the wrong person and you'll find out very quickly.
Yeah. When your MMA training did begin, did you start with all the separate martial arts altogether in 1 week, or was it first jujitsu or first wrestling, then striking, few weeks later?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I'm really glad you brought that up. So when I first started training MMA, I didn't actually train MMA, and the reason I say it
I
like
see.
that is I trained Muay Thai, I trained Jiu-Jitsu, and I did some wrestling. But there was
Okay.
only one MMA class in that gym per week. Only when I
I
went
see.
to England for university was there a daily MMA session. So that's where I first
Oh,
started learning. For example, for those of you who don't know, in jiu-jitsu, there's this thing called guard, where you
yeah.
play off your back, where you're basically lying on your back and you can throw up submissions and do different techniques from your back.
Right.
In jiu-jitsu, that's good because you can, there's a lot of options available. In
Yeah.
MMA, if you play off your back, you will get punched in the face. So
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
I had a very I had to basically find out the hard way because I go to the
Hmm.
UK, I go to the MMA class, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've learned jiu-jitsu, so
Hmm.
I'll be completely fine. I
Yeah.
pulled guard. I'm not joking. I pulled guard, and
Hmm.
within the first 10 seconds, I got punched so many times. I'm
Right.
like, I'm never doing this again. I am never
Right.
pulling guard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started with, but the reason I mentioned this is that while it is important to train the individual arts, MMA has to be treated as its own sport.
Yes.
It is, and a lot of people don't make that sort of. A lot of people don't make that. How do I call it? I'm running out. Distinguishment. I don't know if that's the
Right.
word. Yeah, you get
Hmm.
what I'm saying. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah. Uh, I have to make an MMA joke here. It seems like your CTE is kicking in. That's why you are missing out on some words.
Nah, no. It could be, man. Could be.
No,
Fortunately,
no,
I'm
no.
a wrestler, so I haven't taken many blows yet. But it's
How much have you
yeah.
bled so far from your face? Do you have scar tissue on your face already? Do you bleed easily?
Not really, to be honest. Not really. To be honest, the only scar tissue I actually had was on my nose, and
Oh,
that's actually from cricket.
I see.
Because the ball hit me in the nose and then I broke
I
it.
see.
So over
Okay.
here, like I had a fight sometime last year where I got punched there and it opened up. That's probably the only scar tissue that I have.
Hmm.
Otherwise, otherwise not so much.
Right. Why do you
Fingers
think
crossed.
Khabib never bled? Is his skin built different, or did he just defend that well?
So when I say that I'm a wrestler and I don't take as many blows, I mean part of it was a joke, but part of
Hmm.
it was being serious. Khabib, how many shots? Like if you look at the way he fights and you look at wrestlers the way they fight, if you're
Hmm.
on top and you're grappling, you're not actually taking as many clean shots um, as someone who is a striker. For
Right.
example, you look at George St. Pierre. Yes, he took a lot of hits, and I'm sure in sparring as well. But when
Yeah.
you're in top control, even if someone's hitting you from the bottom,
Hmm.
like those punches, like while people may think they're effective, they're not very effective. They don't
Yeah.
hurt very much. So yeah, that's probably why. I'd
Hmm.
say that he's so dominant, and he was such a dominant grappler that where was he taking those sorts of shots?
Right. Do you think Khabib would have beaten Tony Ferguson if the fight had happened?
You know, a lot of people will watch Tony Ferguson now, right? Like he's obviously on a
Yeah.
what 6-7 fight losing streak,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, this clearly shows that Khabib would have lost, as Khabib would have won."
Right.
I think that's wrong. I think that
I see.
I don't know. I think because I do think Tony Ferguson at the time would have posed a pretty good threat. He was
Hmm.
just so unorthodox. The guy had cardio for days, and he was just throwing those wild elbows. And again, people forget that Khabib earlier on, like it refined as his career went on, but earlier on, his striking wasn't all that good.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
really wasn't. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Ferguson caught him. And if Khabib tried to take him down, I can see Tony being the kind of guy who scrambles out, or at least throws nasty elbows from the bottom. Who
Hmm.
knows? Who knows? I'd like to think that it would have been a good fight.
But the fact that Khabib did defeat Justin, doesn't that prove that he would have beaten Tony as well?
Yeah, but again, it's like a different MMA math doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
MMA math doesn't work. The
Yeah.
styles make fights, and that's a real thing. Also, because I
Yeah.
can also say in the Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson fight, for example, had there been 30 seconds left in round two, maybe Gaethje would have been,
Yeah.
maybe we see a different story. Gaethje might have been
Yeah.
knocked out right there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't like to look at Tony Ferguson now and say and judge his career based on his last 2-3
Yeah,
years.
of course, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. After, and that's what Khabib got so accurately when Tony got defeated by Justin. Khabib said that he will never win a fight again. So much damage has been done, and he was so
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Do you think?
exactly.
Do you think Khabib just was overstepping? Do you think he was hyperbolizing and got it right by chance, or do you think that fight was that damaging? Some fights can be that damaging that it completely ends careers and you never come back.
No, it can definitely. I don't think that he was hyperbolizing. I think he was being,
I see.
I think he was being matter of fact. Because
Hmm.
if you see the amount of damage he took, it was brutal, and he really left it all out there. And
Yeah.
so that's one. Two, that will mentally scar you. Taking that kind of punishment will mentally scar you and kill your
Yeah.
confidence. And that's the other thing that is such a big factor in MMA is confidence. So I think a huge reason Ferguson then went on a losing streak after that is just his confidence got shattered.
Hmm.
He wasn't as sort of when you're in there, right? And if you see Tony Ferguson's fights, he always had this sort of flow.
Hmm.
He was in that flow state.
Yeah.
He was
Completely.
almost like he was just having fun in there. He
Yes.
kind of lost that. He sort of lost that as time went on, and then it didn't help that he got brutally knocked out by Chandler, and then
Yeah,
he's
Mike.
getting
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I just think a lot of it is that, and plus,
Yeah.
when he's called El Cocoy, the boogeyman, right, and
Hmm.
rightly so, because when he's confident and he's got this aura around him, the fighters fighting him are like, oh god, I got to be careful. But then Gaethje puts a beating on him like that. Suddenly, fighters are looking at that and they're like, hey, wait a minute, like if you take the fight to him and you do X, Y, and Z, he's not as effective as we
Right.
thought.
Right. Yeah, and Justin's coach is so damn intelligent. I guess they somehow just got the keys to the castle here, and that's
Yeah.
what I had been thinking that the kind of damage that Tony took, that kind of damage Justin takes in every match, and even Michael Chandler takes in every match. So what's different here? Just their age, just because Tony is that old, and that's why his confidence got shattered. Do you think?
No, so part of it is also just like Tony Ferguson after taking a beating like that. So I'll give you a contrast, right? So Brian Ortega after he fought Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Volkanovski, that was a
What
great
a
fight.
beautiful match!
Unbelievable.
One of the best
Unbelievable.
matches of all time. Yeah.
Seriously. And yes, we all remember the guillotine and the triangle and
Yeah.
Volk, pushing through everything.
Yeah.
But Ortega took a beating. He took a real beating. And after that fight, he took about a year and a half off
Yeah.
from fighting.
Yeah.
Ferguson, if I'm not like his turnaround time was quite short after losing to Gaethje, and then if you see all the losses after, he was fighting pretty regularly for a guy taking that kind of punishment. So yeah, I think that definitely affected him, and I do think part of it is also you have to remember. I think 2 weeks before that fight, the Gaethje fight, he cut weight. Remember, he was like, "I'm gonna make
Yeah.
weight." And he was supposed to fight
Yeah.
Khabib, and then he
Yeah.
made weight anyways.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
fought Gaethje. Look, those
Yeah.
weight cuts are nasty. Okay, those weight cuts take it out of you. After you do a
Yeah.
weight cut, especially at the UFC level where they're cutting a lot more weight,
Yeah.
your body goes into shock. You're
Yes.
basically killing yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that would have played a part in it.
Yeah, I have specific questions for you regarding your weight cut experiences as well. We will get to that separately.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think Khabib would have beaten GSP
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
even
I really
even
don't.
with GSP's age?
Those two are my favorites of all time. Okay,
Hmm.
those both those guys.
Khabib and
I
GSP.
don't. Yeah, Khabib and GSP
Oh,
both.
mine too. Nice.
Yeah, no, good taste. Uh, yeah, I don't think so. Just because GSP took down the best of wrestlers. Okay, he was able
Yeah.
to take down the best of wrestlers, and
Yeah.
everyone, and he has what the most takedowns in MMA history. Actually, no. Now Merab does, but before that,
Yeah.
he had the most takedowns in UFC history. The
I
guy is a
see.
striker. The guy,
Right.
the guy is a striker. Okay, people
Yeah.
forget this. The guy comes from a karate background.
Yeah.
So I think that GSP, because he has good wrestling, if he got taken down, he has good enough jiu-jitsu to scramble back up.
Yes.
And on the feet, he would have. It's not even close. I think he would have
Hmm.
beat the crap out of Khabib
Yeah.
and jabbed his head off. So those are the three main reasons. But then also GSP is a middleweight. You know, Khabib is
Right.
fighting a lightweight.
That's the big
Size
problem.
difference. So there's also a size difference. So that's why I
Yeah.
am quite confident in saying that GSP would have won.
Yeah, they would have to fight at some catch weight, some I guess 165 pound. If both agreed to it, only then it could have happened.
Yeah.
And Dana White doesn't want that.
But even then, like, you know, let's say they fight at the catch weight, the frame and everything, it makes a difference because when they rehydrate, GSP will rehydrate at a higher weight.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
person
yeah.
I personally believe, since I personally believe that Khabib would have won. Let me ask you this: do you think it's fair to compare the wrestlers GSP faced with the wrestlers Russia creates? GSP hasn't defeated that many Russian wrestlers. Would you say that Russian wrestling is in general better, or even sambo, and therefore
Russian
it would
wrestling,
have been tougher? Yeah.
look, Russian wrestling, undeniably the best, okay, in the world.
Hmm.
Russian wrestling, so there's Russians, Iranians, Americans, and
Hmm.
now obviously the Japanese,
Yeah.
right? MMA wrestling is not the same as wrestling.
Fair enough.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
And you could be, you know, if it was the same, Henry Cejudo, I mean, as good as he was, and you know, this is a double
Right.
champ up talk, he would have
Yeah.
never lost. He would have literally never lost. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not the same. He's been
True.
like you
True.
can see, Henry Cejudo's getting taken down by Merab. Aljo took him down. So you know, it's not like just
Yeah.
because the Russian wrestling and the Russian wrestlers are better doesn't necessarily mean that Khabib
Right.
is facing high level opponents in the MMA in the MMA side of things.
Yeah. How do you think GSP's wrestling got so good? Because his jiu-jitsu, though, we know why it's good. But do you think Firas Zahabi is the main guy who deserves credit for this?
I think like what makes GSP's takedown so good is the entry and the setup. So he was so good with the timing. To the point where, like, look, if he gets in on your hips, it doesn't matter how good a wrestler you are. Like, you know, if he's in on your
Yes.
hips, he's in on your hips. Your hands are here. You're not going
Yeah.
to defend that. So
Yeah.
he set it up very well, whether it was with his kicks, his jabs, his level changes. Also, he just blasted through. He didn't care about
Yeah.
looking pretty or whatever. He didn't care. He was just going to get you down.
Yeah.
So I think it was those two. Also, a really big one is, so he comes from a karate background, right? So where you basically jump back and forth, you push off the back leg onto the front foot, and you keep going back and forth. When you have a strong push off the back leg, it means you have a strong drive.
Take off. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that made his short entries very quick and powerful. I think that definitely
Right.
helped. So
Right.
yeah, I think he was just the timing. I think the timing is the main one because he
Right.
just timed the takedown to perfection. It's
Right.
just complete to watch.
Right. What do you think of Islam Makhachev now?
Oh,
Islam.
Islam. Oh, what a fighter! I mean, that's
Yeah.
he's pound for pound. Wait, he's pound for pound number one now.
Yeah.
He is, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be. He is
Hmm.
pound for pound number one.
He is better than
Earlier,
Khabib, right?
I think he's better than Khabib. Even though he has a
Yeah.
loss on his record, I do think that he's better than what Khabib
Yeah. Yeah.
was. Because he can
Yeah.
beat people anywhere. He can knock you
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Khabib, I don't think Khabib would have ever knocked out
Hmm.
Volkanovski, for example.
Yeah.
Islam did it in round one or round two.
Yeah.
It's just, and he doesn't look like a wrestler striking.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times you'll see grapplers or wrestlers come into MMA, and you can tell they're a grappler, like myself included, right? You can tell that I'm a grappler when I strike. Islam, like he looks like, I'm happy to fight 5 rounds on the feet if I
Yeah.
have to. Saw that in the Poirier fight, right? Like he was willing to
Yeah.
stand and trade with Poirier. Obviously, got him down, and in the final round, even submitted him. But yeah, he was more than happy to stand with one of the most lethal strikers in that division. So
Yeah.
yeah, he deserves to be where he is.
Yeah, about 3 or 4 years back, I had heard some AK guys say in some podcast that you all haven't even seen what Khabib was capable of, and you all haven't seen what Islam is capable of. Don't judge them by the fights you have seen. All their best moves are still hidden, and only we get to see them inside the gym. Their best weapons haven't even been needed to be displayed as of now.
I can believe that. I can believe that. Like, if Khabib has, I suppose Khabib never really had to pull out anything
Right.
fancy, right?
Yeah.
If, like, for example, Makhachev did. When he did that golf
Yeah.
swing into the Dars,
Yeah.
that was something fancy and that was beautiful. I think that's what they're talking about. Those sort of
Yeah.
moves. But I
Yeah.
don't think that. Okay. That being said, the training room is very different from a fight. So just because you're doing all of this in the training room,
Right.
it doesn't mean that they'll do it in a fight. So I
Right.
think part of that is also just marketing.
Right. What do you think of fighters like Zabit and Hamzat who come in and blow everyone's minds, but then sort of dissipate? What's happening with Hamzat? I thought he would be champion twice, thrice by this time. What the hell happened to him? And even Zabit.
Well, Zabit retired. Zabit
Yeah.
retired. I think he
Why?
got
How?
because
How do these careers never reach their full potential?
so there's many reasons, right? Like it's a brutal sport. So, wear and tear. And one thing that I will say about Kamzat, we always see how Kamzat's sick and he's like, I think he almost died.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, guys, any of these fighters saying they train 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day, okay? There's two things going on here. Either they're they're taking some very special supplements, okay?
Right.
And even if they are, okay, even
Yeah.
if they are taking said special supplements,
Hmm.
your body is getting taxed, okay?
Yeah.
Your immunity system is going through the grinder. So it is no
Yeah.
surprise that Kamzat is getting sick as often as he is, and he's getting sick to the point where he's having to go to hospital because overtraining is a real thing. And he said that
Yes.
when he had COVID, he's still training through it. Yeah, then what do you expect? If you have COVID and you're doing 6 to 7 hour training sessions, what do you expect is going to happen?
Varun, what does it take for a country to create great athletes in any sport, do you think? What creates a great athlete?
What creates a great athlete or creates great athletes, like as a collective?
Collective? Because I'm wondering, in some sports, India is really great, but in some sports, regardless of, I guess our entire talent pool is stuck up with cricket only therefore we can't have a great MMA fighter. It's not about poverty, right? Because poor countries as
It's
well
not
as rich
poverty.
countries are creating great fighters.
Look, it's not a poverty thing, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. I mean, look, money does help. Money 100% helps, and there is an investment that is required. Okay, so for example, if you look at, so I've been to Tajikistan, I've been to Uzbekistan, for example, and the culture around MMA, and I'm going to talk about specifically MMA, but this can apply to different sports. The culture around the sport is just brilliant. You know, when I was walking there, I remember I went to a mall to, I don't know, I went to buy clothes or something. Yeah, so I went to a shop to buy clothes, and the guy who was helping me out, he saw my ear, and he's like, "Hey, are you a fighter? Do you do wrestling?" And the guy himself was an MMA fighter, you know. And then there's so many different places that I'd go, and people would stop and ask if I'm a wrestler. People would want to talk to me about MMA. That it's like, you know, here it's like being a cricketer here or being a footballer
I
in
see.
India. You know,
Right.
over there you're just treated very differently. I remember in
Right.
Tajikistan, Coach and I were walking. It was very obvious we had no idea where we were going, and someone just pulled up and he asked if we were MMA fighters, and he gave us a free ride home. Like, he just doesn't know who we are. Some random Tajik guy, barely spoke English, but he just gave us a free ride home for the very fact,
I see.
just for the very fact that we were fighters. So it's the culture around it. And over there, you see like how people play gully cricket here. People just
Yeah,
wrestle.
yeah. I
People
see.
just wrestle. People just fight. You know. So I think that's where it starts, and it has to start in the schools, right? So you have to start it from the grassroots. Have a good grassroots system, and then, you know, if you have like so let's say, for example, you have in a school 200 kids practicing MMA, right? Not every single one of them is going to take it professionally.
Yeah.
But if the average level is of a certain standard, of like a high
Yeah.
standard, like a decent
Yeah.
standard, outliers are just naturally going to be
Yeah.
higher level, right? So then
Yeah.
when the outliers go off into the, you know, the amateur circuit, the semi pros, and the professional circuit, they've already
Yeah.
just got a good foundation.
Hmm.
That's once, and if they have that good foundation, that's when the investment has to come in. That's when, you know,
Right.
the investment into
Right.
recovery, training camps, exposure to different training partners, higher level gyms, international tournaments. That's where the investment has to come in. But the
Right.
foundation is the most important part. If without the foundation, it doesn't matter, and
Right.
or
I guess
it is a lot more difficult.
some of our potentially great MMA fighters are, I guess, stuck up in cricket and football then, or maybe preparing for UPSC. The talent pool
I
is just
hope
not there.
not.
Yeah.
I hope
Since
not.
you brought your ears up, for those of you all who don't know, the ears that he has kind of deformed, they are actually the proud mark of a fighter. They are called cauliflower ears because they look like cauliflowers, which Firaz Zahabi had said in one of the greatest fitness discussions of all time on a podcast with Joe Rogan, said that if you don't want cauliflower ears, drain them regularly. But some fighters want to show off their cauliflower ears, and some it's a culture in on the streets of Brazil to even get plastic surgery and do artificial cauliflowers just because it marks you out as a great fighter. So which was it, Varun, for you? Did you deliberately not drain them?
No, I did. I did. Okay, I'll tell you, like, I'll let you in on a secret. Okay, this is
Right.
I mismanaged these because my friends and I. So
Okay.
this one is obviously way worse than this
Yeah.
one. Okay,
Right.
and the reason for that is this one happened first, and when it first happened, you know, when it first filled up and whatnot, you're supposed to take a syringe and you're supposed to drain the blood out such
Yeah.
that it doesn't get puffy like this.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, I'm the only person in my friend circle that does MMA or
Okay.
has got cauliflower ear. So for everyone, it
Okay.
was very exciting. So, so then what happened was, and I was in university at this time, it became like a pastime. You know, people would come home, like if you have friends over or there's a party or whatever, people would take turns taking the syringe. We had a whole setup. We had a whole setup. There was like Dettol bottles, there was like cotton swabs, everything. Okay. Health and safety was still followed to
Okay.
whatever level it followed. But yeah, it was like, you know, it was basically a bunch of my friends taking turns poking the ear and draining it out.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah, this is the aftermath.
I see. So is it completely calcified at this point?
It is completely calcified. Now it's been like
Oh
2, 3
shit.
years. But
I see.
obviously, you know, after that, I learned from my mistake. So this one isn't so bad. This one is pretty normal.
I see. So since it's calcified, there's a higher risk of it completely tearing off, right, in a fight, like it happened recently last year in UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose hopefully it doesn't happen, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's high risk just because it's I suppose larger surface area. It's heavier. If it punches, it
right.
just come off.
Yeah, it's a. Does it make you fight more carefully because of the conscious thought of a cauliflower ear?
Not really, because the thing is, it's already calcified, so I don't really feel it. Just feels like a normal ear.
Oh, I see.
It's just hard. It's just hard. For example, if I touch it, it's not like it hurts or anything like that.
Hmm. What has been your worst injury so far?
In MMA or generally?
Oh, so there are separate categories here. Then both. Answer both.
Okay, so generally, this is really strange because generally I'd say like the worst injury I've had is actually, to be honest, both are in MMA. I don't know what I'm talking
Oh,
about. Yeah, both are in
okay.
MMA. But
I
it's
see.
not an injury so much. Basically, I had this thing called a staph infection.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, staph infection is a bacterial infection. It's very common in contact sports,
Hmm.
specifically, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA,
Yeah.
because of the skin contact.
Hmm.
And what happens is there's like a tiny sort of boil that grows on your skin. And if
Hmm.
you leave it untreated, it obviously grows and it gets worse and worse. And the bacteria spreads.
Hmm.
So I'd gone to I remember my knee was really hurting. I was like, what the hell? And it was like a tiny thing, like this tiny. Okay. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, it can't be. I didn't even know what a staph infection was. So I went to the hospital. My knee's like this. It's like a balloon. And the guy misdiagnosed it. He's like, oh, you do MMA. You probably just, hit something and it got swollen up. Just ice it for a few days. It'll be fine. So I was like, okay.
I see.
So then I go home. 2 days later, my knee is so big. I'm like, this makes no sense. And I literally couldn't move. Like, if I even move my leg, if I'd even move my leg, I would scream. I was literally screaming because
I
it
see.
hurt so much. So my friends had to come home and carry me to the hospital.
Hmm.
And then we realized it's a staph infection. And then they had to do 2 operations on it to drain out all the fluid from my knee, all the bacteria. I was on
Hmm.
antibiotics for 2 weeks. I even had like this vacuum pack that I had to
Hmm.
carry around once I was discharged that had a tube and it was connected to the opening in my knee that was 24/7 sucking out all the fluid in my knee. It got that
Hmm.
bad. So
Right.
yeah, in terms of injury, it's not necessarily an injury,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's definitely the worst. The staph infections or skin infections in martial arts and combat sports are just the
Hmm.
worst. Definitely the
Yeah.
worst.
What all bones have you broken in your life?
Oh, just my nose. To be honest, just my nose, and I think
I see.
my fingers. Sometimes. Fingers from
I
cricket,
see.
my nose from cricket as well.
I
But
see. And
I've torn my
oh,
hamstring playing. Well, not playing. Well, hamstring wrestling. I've done
I
my
see.
shoulder, my ankles, neck.
Okay.
It's like
Shoulder
my
injury
wrist.
from powerlifting or from MMA? The shoulder injury.
Everything I mentioned was from MMA, whether it's in
I
fight
see.
or post fight. Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. And
So that
what
was
bones have you broken on your opponents?
my opponent. I've broken 2 of my opponent's nose that I can remember.
I see.
Quite
Nice.
recently, actually. Yeah, broke one of my opponent's nose. His eyes got
Okay.
swollen up, which
I
was
see.
which was quite strange. Because I remember seeing him the next day. I was like, oh, this is. I did that. I felt kind
What
of
did it
bad
feel
for
like?
that. Well, in the fight, it was just really bloody, and it was like kind of, um,
Yeah.
you know.
What did it feel like on the next day when you saw him?
I mean, see, it was kind of weird because I knew the guy, uh,
Hmm.
so I felt kind of bad, but also like I felt kind of bad that I had to do it. But I was like, man, it's business, okay, nothing personal.
Hmm.
And I've
Hmm.
trained with him after that, and it's completely chill. But it's so strange when
Hmm.
you see you've just broken a
Yeah.
guy's nose. Uh, Even when you like, after the fight, when you're like dapping each other up, or you're like
Yeah.
congratulating each other, whoever won. it's such a strange feeling. Like you just tried to kill each other, and now suddenly you guys are like best of friends.
Yeah. What kind of serious training do you do inside the gym? How serious does it
What's
get?
in terms of the sparring?
Yeah.
I think it depends on it's sparring culture differs. Like it depends where you're training. Like for example, in my gym in the UK, when I was training there, they're more about light sparring and occasionally going hard. Okay, whereas like in India, the gym that I'm training at here, there's a lot more hard sparring, and it's more. It sort of mimics the fight more. But then obviously
I
you
see.
can't do that as regularly because
Yeah.
you basically become a vegetable by the time you're 28.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to. I think for me, the advantage is that because I've been exposed to a different training style, and I've been exposed to the training style in the UK, I learned from that. So I'm willing to just be like, look, guys, today I'm not going hard, okay? And if a guy goes hard unnecessarily, I just don't spar with him because I'm trying to save my brain and I'm trying to have a long career
Yeah.
in fighting and after fighting. So yeah, I think that's basically how I'd answer that question. I mix it
When you
up.
are right, when you are practicing the strikings, then do you wear the headgear? How often do you wear the headgear?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. It's many people think that the headgear protects you. Okay, it does if you don't want to get cuts. Like for example, from if
Right.
you're
Right. It only
going up to a
protects
fight,
cuts.
it protects you from cuts and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
it actually just makes your head a bigger target. So
Hmm.
a lot of times, like you'll take punches that you wouldn't necessarily have taken. That's one. Two is you're like tunnel vision. Okay, so like if
Yeah.
you're fighting, you want to have your peripheral vision.
Yeah.
It's the punches that you don't see that hurt you the most. If I can't see
Hmm.
winging punches or hooks, they're going to hit a lot harder. So that's why I prefer not to wear it. Even though people think that they protect you. If anything, I'm taking more damage than I otherwise would have.
Right. Coming back to societies that create fighters a little, would it be too simplistic of me to say that Brazil or the areas of Kazakhstan and all, they are just so violent countries, that's why they create good fighters? Or even USA, it generally takes 2-3 jobs for a middle class guy to survive, and there are violent neighborhoods that therefore they are creating good fighters. Is India too peaceful to create a good MMA fighter?
No. I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
We have a fighting culture in our country. We do.
Yeah.
We literally wrestling
Yeah.
is part of our culture. It's so ingrained in our culture. In fact, Malla Yuddha, right?
Yes.
That is MMA. Okay, just
There's a
called
guy called
something else.
Yuyutsu in Mahabharata.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know
He's
that.
a god of war in Mahabharata. I think the term traveled to Japan when Hinduism traveled to Japan with him.
You know Malla Yuddha, right? So the Yuddha part, I'm quite convinced. I'm pretty convinced that that's where the word judo came from. I think that's where
Right.
judo
I
came from.
see.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It would make
But
sense.
either way, yeah, we have that culture in our, that it dates way back. So I don't want to, I don't believe in this whole, oh, we're a peaceful country and whatnot. First of all, no, we're not. Okay,
Hmm.
like you go out in the street, any day you see
Yeah.
there's a fight every single day. I'm in Delhi. Okay, I
Yes.
can tell you, like as soon as the plane lands in Delhi, your
Yeah.
aggression level just naturally goes up. Okay, so I don't buy this whole peaceful country stuff.
Hmm.
It's just that culture of martial arts in general, be it wrestling, boxing, or whatnot, was killed off. Again, deliberately killed off.
Yeah.
Now it's being revived slowly, because our wrestlers are doing well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just about, like I said, introducing it in our school systems, making it more popular, mainstream. You know,
Yeah.
like for example, I said okay, I'll give you an example. Like the Kazakh team or
Yeah.
the Tajik, they're fully sponsored by billionaires that just live there. They have a liking towards MMA, so they're like, okay, we're gonna invest money into this, and then now
Yeah.
slowly they're going into school programs. It's just a matter of having something similar here,
Hmm.
and you have to just package it to seem cool or whatever. For example, jujitsu. Suddenly now you're seeing these jujitsu camps in like Venice. You're seeing
Yeah.
people go to Sicily for jiu-jitsu camp and doing yoga and all of this. Like
Yeah.
it's become this whole I don't know how to explain. Like how yoga is, how people are like, oh, we
Yeah.
go to these yoga retreats
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
like find ourselves.
Yes.
Jiu-jitsu really become like that as well
Yes.
in many parts of the world. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we have to find a way of packaging some of our martial arts that way. But
Hmm.
the point I'm trying to make is that it's just about repackaging it.
Yeah.
Because a lot
Because
of
I'm
people,
I'm wondering, is it fair to blame cricket here? Because there are many countries who are great at many other sports, as well as creating great MMA fighters and wrestlers. So what's going on wrong in just India?
I mean, we can't just blame cricket, right? Like, look, we're good
Or,
at
or cricket
cricket.
fans in general, that why are you liking cricket so much? Why don't you like the sport I like? It can't be that kind of a conversation.
No, you can't. Like, look, I'm a big cricket fan, by the way. I'm a
Hmm.
massive cricket fan.
Hmm.
And I like it because it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like look at okay. First of all, we're good at cricket. Okay, so then it just feeds into the fact that more people are going to watch it. Therefore, more people are
Hmm.
going to play it. There's more opportunities to make money from
Yeah.
it. Then also just look at the IPL. The IPL is actually
Yeah.
exciting the way they package it. So it's just about packaging
Yeah.
it. I'm not saying create an IPL for MMA, but create a
Hmm.
good show. For example, I've been to MFN events. I've been to the last two.
Hmm.
It's a great show. Honestly, when you're there, first of all, it's packed
Yes.
out. Okay, it's packed out. Great
Yeah.
atmosphere. Production is fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
the only one criticism that I have,
Yeah.
and this is true for all MMA promotions in India,
Hmm.
they do not market it. Like
Hmm.
I wasn't in the MMA ecosystem.
Hmm.
I would have no idea that MFN was happening.
Hmm.
Okay, like zero.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just that. It's just that because otherwise, it's a fantastic show. It's a really good show. So and
Yeah.
like if more people, so if they even did like I don't know, just put a billboard up somewhere. As it is, the tickets are free. Okay, you're telling
Yeah.
me if they at Delhi, some random place in Delhi, if they put up a billboard saying free tickets to watch a bunch of people fight, people won't show up in numbers. Of course they will.
Hmm.
Of course they will. People
Yes.
in India will show up to anything that's free. I will. I'll show up to anything that's free and seems
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just about proper. This goes back to what we started with, the marketing.
Yeah. And people are stopping their cars to watch fights on the streets anyway. Why wouldn't they go
Yeah,
see a free fight? Yeah.
exactly. I've done that so many times. I've seen people fight
Yeah.
and I just stand there and watch.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
a beautiful thing to watch fights on the streets, because it's the purest display of your most honest emotions. That's the only time you are being true, being a real guy on the streets, when you are fighting another man. uh,
No, I love
no,
that you brought that
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Actually, I really
Hmm.
love that you said that because a lot of people ask, oh, MMA, like, why do you do it? Like, does that make you a bad like? People seem to think that people who do MMA are bad people, or they're like, are
Hmm.
you a violent person?
Yeah, yeah.
Day to day, do you have like these dark thoughts and you like to inflict damage? Like, I'm not joking. Like, people actually think this.
Hmm.
Um, no, actually, I don't. I don't like. I don't think about like, oh yeah, today I'm gonna go hurt someone. Like, I'm not like plotting
Yeah.
with that. It's just the reason I enjoy it is it's the most primal form of competition. Straight
Yes.
up, it's a fun. There's nothing like it. There's no sport that I've played, and I've played many sports that tests you like MMA. I think that it really shows. Basically, your true character comes out in the cage.
Yeah. And
If you're
this is what. Yeah, yeah. Go on.
sorry, if you're someone
Yeah, yeah. Go on.
who runs away from their problems in the cage, you're going to you're going to be the type of fighter that finds a way out. If you're a person
Yeah.
that's willing to bite down and fight through it, chances are in your real life you are like that, or like outside the cage you are like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And this is something I've forever wondered ever since I started watching MMA. That how what must that feeling be like when you lose a fight and your wife and your kids are watching in front of a gigantic audience? You just go home a loser. What does that night feel like? How do these defeats feel like on those days and those nights?
So obviously it sucks. Like it's not nice. Like, from I think the first, I'll give you the story of when I first lost, and that sort of changed the way I saw losing. So yeah, at that point I'd never lost, whether it was in the interclub level. I was 3-0 at the time, and I'd gone to Tajikistan to fight, and I fought their champion, who was 8-3. He was a lot more experienced than I was, and it was a big step up. I lost, and I remember my whole family got together to watch it. My friends from various parts of the world were tuning in, and somehow I thought that if I lost this fight, so after losing, I somehow thought that oh God, like I'm basically useless. Everyone's going to judge me. Everyone's going to think this and that of me. I can't show my face in public, as though I'm
Right.
some Shah Rukh.
Hmm.
But yeah, I suppose that like your brain just goes into this into all these directions,
Yeah.
and then obviously you put so much time and effort into the fight, so just losing sucks. You
Yeah.
just don't like losing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes into that through all these directions. But that same night, so obviously my coach, man, I can't tell you how important it is to have a good coach. But my coach
Hmm.
basically talks to me and he calms me down, and he's like, "Okay, let's go out for dinner." So I remember, like, I have a cut somewhere on my like around here, and I go to the dinner spot. It's completely crowded in the middle of Tajikistan,
Hmm.
and not one person there cared who I was. Not one person even knew that I had just had this fight, and I'm
Exactly.
just and I'm just like, man, who actually cares? Who
Exactly.
actually cares? Like, yeah, so what I lost. First of all, I stepped in there. I gave it, I gave it my best. I stepped in there. I'm fine. I'm not doing something trivial, you know. So yeah, first of all, I should be proud of myself. Two, like, man, who cares if I lost? These guys, you think that this waiter serving me right now, or that family sitting across the room gives two?
Hmm.
Oh, I don't want to swear, but like they
Yeah.
give a damn if I won or lost. They
Hmm.
don't even know who I am. How does it matter?
Hmm.
And even if I was like Conor McGregor or if I was George St. Pierre, chances are people will think about it for like 1 or 2 days, and then they'll forget about it because no
Yes.
one cares. So it's a real humbling thing in the sense that
Yes.
like while it sucks, it is also humbling in the sense that you're like, dude, you're nothing. Like, you know,
Yeah.
no
I
one,
remember
no one.
GSP gave this exact same answer at one point on Joe Rogan, that he was very
Yeah,
nervous
yeah,
before a fight, and he saw an old lady and thought that old lady doesn't even know him. Why? Who cares then if I lose this match today?
yeah.
That kind of takes the pressure off.
Exactly, exactly. No,
Yeah.
that's exactly why. Because see, the thing is, I'm not completely married to the identity of myself as a fighter as well. I know that outside of
Hmm.
fighting, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend to many people, and I've got other things in my life
Hmm.
to be happy and proud of. So if it's not just I'm a fighter, I'm a fighter. If I was just that, as soon as that image shatters, then yes, of course, I'm going to go through this existential crisis. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, fortunately, I have a strong support network and I have people that I love and love me. So it doesn't matter. And I'm
Right.
sure, and when I look at other fighters that like really beat themselves up, I always tell them the same thing, especially the younger guys that are coming up. I'm like, guys, like I know it sucks, but like think of all the things you have outside of this one, and two, like just get better.
Hmm. Let me ask you something I would have thought of asking you if I didn't know anything about you or your family or Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal. That have you had too much of a cushy upbringing to even become an MMA fighter? Has your upbringing
Yeah.
been too soft just because you were born into a nice, I guess, well-off family?
Yeah, I'd say so, in the sense that like I'm definitely an anomaly in this field. I'm not going to
Right.
sugarcoat it. I definitely am. When you say cushy, in the sense, like, yeah, I went to a good school. I went to university, and obviously didn't have your rags. I'm not having not living this like sort of rags to riches story.
Hmm.
Um, so it can be a blessing and a curse. So, for example,
Hmm.
once you're in the cage, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're Bill Gates' son or you know you have zero money in the bank. You
Yeah.
guys are you guys have to fight each other. So
Yeah.
as it doesn't matter. And that being said, the guy, people always say like, oh, if you come from what's that quote? I'm trying to think. Oh, you don't get better sleeping on silk sheets or something like that. What's that
Right.
quote? That cliche quote.
Yeah.
Uh, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't agree. I really disagree. Like it basically just comes down to the individual.
Hmm.
It just comes down to the individual whether you want to go out there, work hard, and put yourself through it. Arman Sarukian right now is the best example of it. The guy literally comes from
Hmm.
a billionaire's family, but he's
Hmm.
top five, and honestly, he's fighting for the championship soon. So
Yeah.
it comes down to the individual. The only reason that people don't do the sport is obviously like the damage aspect of it.
Hmm.
But people like myself that are crazy and enjoy this, uh, yeah, I don't see why not. I
Yeah.
don't think
Have
you
you?
know
Yeah. Go on.
there's too such thing as having too cushy of a lifestyle for MMA. Like,
Hmm.
look, you can make it work for yourself. Like, you can really
Hmm.
make it work for yourself. For example, the fact
Hmm.
that I'm educated, I have an understanding of the marketing side of things. I also have access to better nutrition and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Hmm.
there's many plus sides and negatives to it.
Yeah. Do you like the Never Back Down movies?
I've actually never watched them.
I
Never
see.
watched them.
Okay. Because I'm about
But
to go into some MMA cliche territory here. So I'm wondering,
no, but
uh, uh, is there any such cliched examples of your in your upbringing and parenting which led you to become an MMA fighter, even though you were from a relatively cushy upbringing? Were there like real insane discipline and let's say tough upbringing which led you to become a fighter? What brought that aggression in you? Because usually in such situations people are physically speaking pretty pussy. Why wouldn't you be a pussy?
but I think part of it is that, like, I think because I okay, I'll tell you an example, right? Like, I remember growing up. Um, as I grew up in Singapore. Okay, for those that don't know, and it's a
Hmm.
very, very, very nice place.
Okay.
Okay, and within Singapore, okay, I grew up in a bubble,
Right.
so you're not exposed to like violence and these sorts of things, like
Yes.
unless okay. And I'll tell you this: like when school fights happen,
Hmm.
okay, it's basically just two people shouting at each other. Okay, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna swing, man. I'm gonna swing." No
Yeah.
one ever swings. Okay, even if you plan
Right.
a fight after school and whatnot, no one ever fights. Okay,
Hmm.
it just never used to happen. Like someone would, like a teacher would show up. There's no
Yeah.
such thing. I suppose for me it was like I hated that. I hated that whole thing. I'm like I hated the fact that I don't know. Part of like once I got a bit older, and you come to India when I've been fortunate enough to travel. Then when I joined the army, I actually had to immerse myself with the real Singapore and other people, the people that didn't have the background that I had. I realized like my
Hmm.
God, man, I had it real easy. So I think it was more like wanting to test myself and really push
Hmm.
myself. That's more than anything. It's like just becoming the best version of myself.
Right.
There's
And
no any
yeah,
aggression or
gone.
anything like. It's just following my passion and becoming the best version of myself. It's not like It's not that, oh, I have this like pent up anger that I want to express.
Right.
And in terms of my family, yeah, that desire to become the best version of myself, yeah, that definitely gets. I definitely get that from my parents, both of them. Both of them push themselves, and when you grow up in that environment, when you grow up in a household like that, I just think it rubs off.
What was your lifestyle like? Like, was it complete discipline and some fun on the weekends, or was it all of it?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like I will say, compared to my friends, my parents were a lot more strict in the sense that I could still go out, see my friend. It was not like that. They weren't on my head like saying study, study, study. That way, I will say they were a bit more relaxed. I think they were just like, look, just don't fail, don't be an idiot. Because I think they sort of trusted me enough that I'd get good grades. But yeah, in terms of going out, like we had to be back by a certain time. Um, we weren't like, even if we went out on weekends, my parents would have to like talk to the parents before,
Hmm.
it's stuff like that, just to make sure that we weren't getting involved with the wrong crowds, basically. Um,
Right.
yeah, but it was. I mean, look, I'm not gonna say like I had a hard life or anything like that. I didn't. I really did.
Hmm. So, how nerdy were you? Were you nerdy at all since you were into cricket? Like, how does someone get into sports but not mix with the wrong crowds? How at up until what age did you completely avoid the wrong crowds?
But I don't think I've ever gotten mixed up with the wrong crowds, to be honest.
Hmm.
Even the sport, like people always assume that if you're a sportsman, you're hanging out with the wrong crowds. I think
Yeah.
that's a stereotype.
Hmm.
It's just that you see like outliers,
Hmm.
that do crazy stuff, and
Hmm.
then you just say, okay, all athletes are like this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so also you have to remember, like I said, I grew up. I went to like a good school. I lived in a nice neighborhood. Like,
Hmm.
how even if like there's a bad crowd within that, how bad
Right.
can they really be?
Right.
Like, how bad is
Right.
bad? Oh, okay, this guy
Right.
was drinking alcohol and smoking at like 12. Like, that's probably
Right.
the worst. That's probably the worst
Right.
it got. It's bad, don't get me
Right.
wrong, but it's not
Hmm.
like, in England, for example, where people are carrying knives and stuff like that. See, I didn't go to school
Right.
here, so I don't want to talk about here. But
Yeah.
in England, like, when I used to go on buses, I
Hmm.
used to see like kids, and they're like drinking, smoking on the bus. Some of them carrying knives. And I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't have any of this growing up.
Hmm. So in Singapore was better for you than even England. Most people don't realize this.
Singapore
Uh,
is great. Singapore, honestly,
right.
like I've been, like I said, I've been to many countries now. Uh, yeah, that place in terms of safety and for upbringing, it couldn't have been better.
I see. And MMA is a sport, and any sports for that matter is, but MMA especially, I think, takes some mind-boggling amounts of discipline. At what point were you taking it on all on yourself and not being indisciplined at all? When did it come into a full flow of regimentation and routines and stuff?
I suppose that's always been there because, like, when you play sports, say at home, my parents were quite thinking about playing a sport. Okay, it didn't matter which sport, but I had to play a sport. My brother and I both. So we played
Hmm.
cricket. At some point, we played squash, powerlifting, like I said. So
Hmm.
there was always that sort of discipline. I remember when it really got drilled in was when we were playing cricket. We were like 12 or 13 years old.
Hmm.
I remember our whole cricket team. We got caught after training at KFC. Again, at this point, we hadn't. This is like our under 13 team. We
Okay.
hadn't won the championship. We were like in mid season and we hadn't won the championship yet. So our
Hmm.
coach takes us, like, he finds us at KFC, takes us out and scolds all of us. And he's
Hmm.
like, guys, not one of you has a six pack. Mind you, we're 12 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, not one of you has a six pack. You can't do this number of push ups. You're all unfit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So after that, oh my God, like from the age of 12, we were all like, this is a group of boys. We're all like training after the sessions, doing our push-ups, doing our squats, running, swimming, doing whatever it took to get a six-pack, just so we could eat KFC after training. So
Exactly.
that's where it
Right.
all started. That's
Yeah.
where it all started. And then I suppose that's always stayed. Whether it was under 15 cricket, then when I started powerlifting, of course, uh, it became even more like sort of my regimen became even more strict because I wanted to look good. I didn't want to become one of those powerlifters that's
Exactly.
just fat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually look good. So yeah, then
Hmm.
you have to follow a diet and you have to plan your meals. So I've been doing
Hmm.
all of this since the age of 12, 13, 14. So I
I
suppose
see.
it's just natural for me.
Hmm. How much protein were you consuming when you were doing powerlifting versus now
I mean,
in a day?
honestly, I okay. So at the time, I didn't track it. I would just take it by
Okay.
meals
Okay.
because when I was
Right.
powerlifting, I wasn't. I was just eating as much as I wanted. Now I have to
I
be
see.
more careful because I have to make
Hmm.
weight.
Hmm.
Now I'll eat about 200 grams of protein
Okay.
right now. 200. Sometimes
Hmm.
it goes up to 250.
Okay.
But that's because I can just eat a lot. But
Yeah.
200, 250. But in the powerlifting days, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was more,
I
because
see.
I was eating insane amount of food. Like right now, um, after taking creatine, which makes you gain weight, I'm about
Yeah.
79, 80 kilos. I walk around 79, 80 kilos. At
Yeah.
that point, without creatine, I was 86, 87 kilos.
Hmm.
So huge difference, huge difference.
Yeah. So, lay Bengali families, if they are hearing this podcast, will say no, no human body can absorb that kind of protein. So,
Probably not.
how did your body take it, and how does it take it now? And from how many sources are you taking the 230 grams protein? Because it can't come all from one or two sources, right?
Yeah, okay. First of all, in terms of the absorption,
Hmm.
yeah, you might be right. Like I just eat
Hmm.
also like I just enjoy foods that contain protein. I eat chicken,
Hmm.
right? I
Hmm.
love chicken, so I eat a lot of
Hmm.
it. But yeah, I'm not saying you have to eat as much protein as I do. I don't think so.
Hmm.
But um, I'd
Yeah,
say
of course.
simple things is your chicken, fish, mutton. If you eat beef, I don't know if you eat beef, but if you eat beef, have beef,
Hmm.
lamb. So yeah, just stuff like that. I think it's pretty simple.
Hmm.
Eggs,
Hmm.
and then even like this is one thing that really irritates me. People think that okay, I'll have dal, I'll have dal, I'll have dal, and that's my protein. No, that's
Dal
not
can't
it.
give you 200 grams of protein, and people don't realize
No,
how less amounts of protein there is in a bowl of dal.
yeah, I mean it does. It contains protein,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's
it's
not.
it's
Like
negligible
if
for
you
an
want,
athlete. It doesn't do
if you
anything
have
for an athlete.
200 grams of protein from dal, the amount of carbs that you can consuming in calories is unreal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say stick to your meats, your eggs. Obviously, there are going to be people here who are vegetarians, so paneer is a
Hmm.
very good source.
Hmm.
Tofu. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'd say stick to that. Milk, dahi,
Hmm.
nuts. I like cashews, almonds.
Hmm.
What else? Yeah, that's more or less what I eat, to be honest.
Hmm. What's your daily schedule like these days?
My daily schedule. So, like I said, it takes me ages to get to training. So, I get up, I head
Yeah, yeah.
straight to
Start with
training.
your morning routine first and foremost.
Yeah, morning routine. Get up. First thing I do in the morning, actually, and this is something I've started doing in the last year, is actually this is something we had to do in the army
Okay.
every day, and I don't know. I started doing this in the last year or so. 500 ml of water. First thing, uh, I I chug that stuff once I get up. Brush my teeth, do all of that, obviously. Then I go to training. Takes me about an hour and a half. Train. So we usually do like a grappling session in the morning,
Okay.
followed by an MMA, pure MMA session.
Okay. Every
Then
day.
every day other than Sunday.
Okay.
So you'll do that every day. Then in the afternoon, I'll rest up, I'll eat. Then depending on the day, so there's always an evening session, but the evening session is always It always varies. So sometimes it's like a wrestling session, striking session, whatever, or sometimes it's just S&C. So I'm like lifting weights or I'm doing cardio, whatever it is. So it always varies. So the morning is more skills, and then the evening is either skills or S&C.
Right. How many days a week are you training just weights?
Just weights. It depends on whether I'm preparing for a fight or if I'm, just chilling. If I'm training, then I'd say 3 to 4 times a week. If I'm just like if I'm doing more skills based stuff, then I'd say once or twice. I don't
Right.
do many training sessions, to be honest.
Okay. And this is something I didn't notice in the pictures that I found of yours on Google, but at least tell me if this is a new phenomenon for you. Your neck seems insanely broad. Is that because
Yeah.
of your powerlifting days or because of training jiu-jitsu?
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
This is like the vocalist of Slipknot.
Uh, well, I think a lot of it comes from the powerlifting, but like wrestling and jiu-jitsu, you naturally just develop a thick neck. Like if you look at any
Right.
jiu-jitsu or a wrestler,
Yeah.
they have thick necks. You just have to, because just the very fact that there's snap downs, people trying to guillotine you,
Yeah.
break your posture. It all starts from here. Once you start
Yeah.
breaking the head posture, everything follows. Everything follows the head. So you have
Yeah.
to build a very strong neck. Also, it helps with your ability to take shots.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Divya. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, yeah, go
But
on.
yeah, no, it definitely makes a difference. So I would say that the foundation was from powerlifting, but I think the thickness came from wrestling.
Do you do separate workouts, specific workouts just for your neck strength as well? Do
Yeah,
you
you
lift
have to.
weights with your neck?
I don't like to do the neck stuff, like where you put the weight across your head and
Yeah,
do
yeah.
all of that. But I do like tucks. I do this stuff, and then obviously you do your what do you call shrugs, deadlifts,
Right.
stuff like that.
Right.
And then naturally,
Right.
just from doing jiu-jitsu and
Yeah.
doing wrestling, you're going to build
Yes.
the
Exactly.
next.
Exactly. Actually, anyone who trains jiu-jitsu gains all sorts of muscles all over their upper body.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
ends up looking kind of in the same direction. Now, someone was asking in the comment section. Multiple people asked about this. If there's a guy who knows MMA somewhat, or let's say has been training for 6 months or a year, knows MMA kind of, how many people can he fight off in the streets? How many untrained people can he fight off in the streets? Let's say just randomly 4 or 5 gundas show up to fight with him. Can he fight them off, or should he run?
I'd say everyone should run. It doesn't matter. Like even if you're like
Yes.
I would run. I would just say run.
Yeah.
Like there's no point.
Yes.
There's absolutely you don't know what the guy has.
Yes.
You don't know. Also you just never know. Like how do you know you're not fighting John Jones? I mean, obviously,
Exactly.
appearance wise, or like how do you know you're not fighting Demetrius Johnson? Like you just never
Yeah.
know. You really never know. Then they might have a
Yeah.
knife. They might have keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like the street's different. Like let's say,
Yeah.
okay, for example, like let's say you grab a guy and you start choking him out. Suddenly, a guy kicks you in the head.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I think
let's say there's
okay.
running is
Let's
not
say-
an option.
Let's say running's not an option. I'd say about
Yeah.
4 to 5 people. 4 to 5 people. Not after 6 months. I'd say once you're a bit more experienced, yeah, 4 to 5 people. I mean, Chill's
Yeah.
and 4 or 5 people, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So I use that as my.
Yeah.
Got a bar or my
Yeah.
standard.
But yeah, even mentally, wrestlers are built different. Would you say wrestling is the toughest one for lungs
Yeah.
among all
Without a
sports?
doubt. It's just the toughest of them all. Out of all the ones that you train, and that's also why when you go to any MMA gym, you'll see the wrestling class is usually the smallest. It's if you want to wrestle, like I don't know how to explain. Like you have to be willing to get into the grind. There's no other
Yeah.
way. You can't wrestle and be yes, you can flow wrestle and do stuff like that, but if you really want to wrestle, you have to accept that, okay, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to grind. So I think
Right.
that it is definitely the toughest of the lot.
What weight do you walk around at?
What weight do I walk around at? It varies. Right now I'm about 79, 80.
It's
That's on
completely
great.
off season weight, right?
Yeah, this is all off season. When I'm getting ready for a fight, like let's say I'm in a tournament and I'm fighting at lightweight,
Hmm.
then I'll walk around at 72 and a half, 73. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, like let's say I'm doing one of those where I'm weighing in the day before and then I'm fighting,
Hmm.
then I'll walk about 75, 76 kilos.
Hmm.
But right now I'm
Now,
just
now for
walking.
the
Sorry, right now I'm
uh,
just
f-
walking. But
yeah.
also, bear in mind this is one of the first few times I'm taking creatine, and
Okay.
honestly, I feel like a Greek god. Like
Hmm.
I feel the strongest I've ever felt in my life. Um,
Right.
Obviously, outside of powerlifting, I didn't realize that it was a magic supplement, but it's great.
Hmm.
It's great. I love it.
Describe a weight cut for the lay people here. What is it, and why do people do it, and what's it? What are the steps that you have to go through for a weight cut?
Okay, so weight cut. For those who don't know, in MMA, boxing, wrestling, there are weight categories, right? So let's say my weight category is 70 kilos. On the day off or the day before the fight, you do this thing called a weigh-in where you stand on a weighing scale and measure. So my weight class is 70 kilos. So on if I miss the 70 kilo mark by even 100 grams, I'll get automatically disqualified. Okay. Now what typically happens is to gain an advantage, what fighters do is they'll walk around at let's say 72, 73. Okay, let's say they're weighing in on the same day of their fight. They'll walk around at 72, 73 kilos. Then the night before, they'll cut out all salt, all the carbs, right? Because this is what holds on to water. This is what holds on
Yeah.
to water weight. And you'll essentially, so you lose your glycogen, your muscle glycogen, and you
Hmm.
start sweating a lot.
Hmm.
Then you go to the sauna, a hot bath, or whatever you can, or you put on a lot of
Right.
layers and hit
Yeah.
pads, and you just basically sweat as much as possible, such that all the water weight in your body gets flushed out. So from
Yeah.
73, you now go to 70 kilos.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, bear in mind you're fighting on the same day. So I've gone from 73, I've lost 3 kilos of water weight
Yeah.
overnight. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm very dehydrated. Now I have to gain that water weight back. So then right after you weigh in, you have to create all these like drinks with full of electrolytes, sugar, you have to have a lot of carbs to regain your weight back. And
Hmm.
I guess the logic is that see when you're fighting, if even like that 1 kilo weight advantage over time build it helps, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you're carrying a weight, right? Imagine you're having to carry someone's body weight for
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
rounds. That one
Yeah.
kilo makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And in terms of my height, sorry, just to sidetrack. In terms of my height, I'm
Yeah.
about I'd say 5'9.5". So
Okay.
that what's 176 centimeters. I know my
Okay.
centimeters. Every time
Okay.
I'll tell you what happens. Okay, sorry. Just a quick
Yeah. Yeah.
sidetrack.
Yeah.
Every time I say I'm 5'9", okay, if I say I'm 5'9", I have no problem saying
Hmm.
I'm 5'9". But other
Hmm.
other people who are as tall as me get angry
Hmm.
when I say I'm 5'9".
I
Okay, they're
see.
like, dude, you're not 5'9". I'm 5'10", bro. You're 5'11". I'm like, bro, you're not. Okay, I'm 5'9". I know I'm 5'9", 5'9.5". They're like, no, bro, you're 5'10". Trust me. So they get
I
really
see.
irritated.
I
So that's
see.
why I don't know. I always get confused. But I just say I'm 176.
So I just remember that you were saying that jujitsu in for some people has become like that, like yoga retreat and stuff. Do you fear
Yeah.
that BJJ will also become like karate, where every kid who does haya at 12 gets a black belt at every nook and
Uh,
cranny of the streets?
hey, in some places, it already has become like that, unfortunately.
Has it?
But
Even
yeah, for
BJJ?
sure. Yeah, even BJJ. Why you can like some people who like just showing up, they get graded up, like they get a blue belt. Then you show up for another year, you get a purple belt. No, it's actually quite a shame. It's quite a shame, and that's why like Islam Makhachev is like, brother,
Yeah.
who gives black belt? Have to check you. He says that. I
Yeah.
don't blame him for saying that, man. I really don't blame
Yeah.
him for saying it. Like there's times where I will absolutely ragdoll a brown belt. Okay, I am in my gym a blue belt. Okay, because the philosophy that my gym has, and this is both true in both India and in England. Their philosophy is if I'm giving you a purple belt, you have to be good enough such that if you were to enter a tournament, a jiu-jitsu tournament, at a purple belt level, you should at least be competitive, or you should
Yeah.
be able,
Of
or
course.
I believe that you can win, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these places will hand a purple belt, say like, oh, okay, you know this technique and that technique, therefore, here's your purple belt. Um,
Yeah.
no, it depends. Like it's really watered down, and some some dojos, academies, they really don't hold themselves to high standards. Also, like they just get paid and hand out belts.
Belt promotion in jiu-jitsu is supposed to happen at the hands of black belts only, right? So are they not following those rules? So it's
No,
a
no,
completely made up belt then?
it doesn't have to be at the hand of a black belt. Basically, let's say, so once you're a purple belt, you can promote people to blue belt, right? And then once you're
Right.
brown belt, you can promote people to purple belt and
Hmm.
and so on.
Hmm.
Typically, even as a black belt, to promote someone else to a black belt, you have to have like, I think you have to have like one stripe or two stripes if you want to promote someone from a brown belt to a black belt. I might be wrong
Hmm.
on that, but that's usually what I've seen. That's what I've seen in most gyms.
Okay. Interesting. That's not what I've seen in Kolkata. In Kolkata, people are waiting for their Brazilian coaches to turn up months later or once or twice a year to actually promote everyone else in the gym. Even the coach himself is not promoting anyone. None of his students. Only his trainer will come, who is a black belt from Brazil. He comes and only he checks them and sort of takes an examination and then gives them the promotion or doesn't give them the promotion. This is pretty fascinating.
No, and that's fine. That's fine. Like people do that.
Yeah.
There are gyms that do that. So, for
Hmm.
example, I don't know the instructor. I don't know if the instructor is what his belt is,
Hmm.
but yeah, maybe for example, he wants the instructor, like the black belt instructor, to.
Yeah, he's a purple belt now. There are two, three purple belts in Kolkata. They are the most senior ones in Kolkata.
Okay, yeah. So they can promote people to blue belts,
I
but at the
see.
same time, like I suppose at a purple belt, you're not senior enough uh, and you're
Right.
not. You probably don't have that level of confidence where you can be like, okay, that guy, I'm going to promote him. You want either a
Hmm.
brown belt or a black belt to say for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So what gym do you train right now? Have you forever been learning MMA there only ever since you've been practicing MMA since you've been in Delhi?
Yeah, so I train at various gyms to be honest. Like,
I
for
see.
example, in Singapore, whenever I'm in Singapore, because that's where I grew up, I have a team that I train with. In Delhi specifically, Warriors Cove and Combat Lab.
Okay. I see.
So Warriors Cove is one of the best gyms, if not the best gym in
I
India.
see.
So
Okay.
fortunately, in the city that I'm from, so train out here. And then in London, Fight Zone London. So I
Okay.
train with Coach Stuart Austin over there. So yeah, these are the gyms that I've been training at, or I have trained at. Obviously, I've been to other gyms, just to train and do sessions.
Hmm.
But these are,
Hmm.
if I had to say like, what are my home gyms? These are the ones.
I see. Which cities do you think are doing the best job in MMA in India?
In India, uh,
Yeah.
so I'd say Delhi for sure.
Okay.
Delhi NCR. Uh, so Dehradun's doing pretty good. Dehradun's good.
Hmm. I see.
Uh, Bangalore has a pretty decent scene. Has a
Yeah.
few good fights coming out. Mumbai has a few, not so many, but it's still a fairly decent scene there. Chennai did at one point have a
Hmm.
very good MMA scene. In the last few years, it's kind of died out. I have no doubt that it'll pick up again.
Hmm.
And the Northeast, oh my God, the Northeast,
Yes.
Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, these places, Assam,
Hmm.
these places, it's really booming there. Arunachal, booming.
Yeah.
It's
And
really
for some
booming there.
reason, the Northeast always has a background and a history of explosive strength because of their weightlifting history. So now they are going to put all of that into MMA, where it's really going to
Yeah,
be
why not?
beneficial.
Why not? Like
Yeah.
those guys are tough, man. I train with a lot
Yeah.
of guys from all these places that I just mentioned. They're
Hmm.
tough. They're willing to scrap. They're really
Hmm.
willing to scrap. So, it's always a fun round with them. But remember, I was talking about hard sparring and having your easier rounds where you're just flow sparring. With the
Hmm.
guys from the Northeast, there's no flow sparring.
Hmm.
It's only you have to bite down and fight.
Yeah.
You they only know one way.
Yeah. But the kind of sparring you prefer, you said, where you are really strict with it, that if someone is trying to get too serious, you quit the situation, or you leave the situation. That's what I had heard about Thailand as well. That it's all just touch. We are just practicing our moves here. We are not applying full strength. And if you do become too aggressive, we are going to leave the ring.
Yeah, then that's like a lot of places do have that. But again, I don't want
Hmm.
to say that I don't hard spar at all because you have to.
Yeah, yeah, of
Every gym
course.
has
Yeah, yeah,
you have to hard spar. Even
yeah.
GSP, even Max Holloway. See, when Max Holloway says he doesn't spar, he spars. Okay, he doesn't. It just means he's not doing hard sparring. But
Yes.
and he's at a point where he can do that because he's had many
Hmm.
hard sparring rounds such that okay, he's no longer phased by the pressure and the pace and the impact of a fight.
Hmm.
So you have to mix it up. So when I say I prefer the flow
Yeah.
sparring, I think in terms of long-term development, that's the best.
Yeah.
But hey, don't get me wrong. I love my hard sparring rounds. Those are fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, an interesting question came up here, but this is a forever recurring discussion for people who are on the kind of nationalist side of things in India,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
who talk about let's say reviving our martial arts. How do you think that can be done? Is there anything? Is does such a concept even exist where we apply the phrase reviving our martial arts? Is there any way to
Yes. Yeah.
connect Kalaripayattu to MMA here, or how do we revive Kalaripayattu as a mainstream combat sport?
See, like I said, we've always had Malay Yuddha, right? And then that's
Yes.
always been in our scripture. So I don't
Yes.
see why we can't bring it back. That basically means we've always had MMA in our culture. So, like I said,
Yes.
it starts at grassroots. I think the way to revive the culture is to introduce. It doesn't necessarily have to be MMA, but introduce it into schools, whether it's
Yeah.
wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, even karate for that matter. Introduce it to the schools. Once people start, like so for example, let's say someone's doing karate and he becomes good at it
Hmm.
because the money is now in MMA worldwide. The money is in MMA, and that's like the hot sport, right?
Yeah.
Naturally, out of the like, let's say you get a bunch of talented karatekas. Some of
Yeah.
them will naturally go towards MMA. Even in wrestling, look at the guys that are wrestling, right? In the US, for example, all these guys that were NCAA champions or didn't make the
Yes.
cut for the Olympic team, they just decide they'll go uh, into MMA and then they thrive. So in terms of reviving it, yeah, it's just I really think it just has to start at the schools. I really think it has to
Yeah.
start at the schools. Once you have kids
Um.
doing it and doing it recreationally,
Yeah.
the professionals and the standouts will just emerge from that.
Yes. Now, what you are saying, I agree with, but it's still kind of talking about how to make better wrestlers or MMA fighters in the future. And let's say we are talking about reviving the martial spirit of Indians here. But how is there any way to specifically revive specific martial arts which are today which have devolved into dance forms? Is there any way to bring those back into the fighting fold?
Yeah, I think like for example, let's say you come from a Kalari background, okay? Obviously, Kalari is more focused on your weapon and like weapon fighting. But even then,
Hmm.
I'm sure that there are techniques that you can take from there and apply it to MMA. It's just about finding it. And I
Yeah.
don't think that there's any harm in that. And if you were to do that, by the way, you wouldn't be doing MMA, quote unquote. You'd be doing Malla Yuddha. You're mixing up the
Yeah.
forms.
Yes.
So I think,
And I think
yeah,
one
sorry.
problem that people don't get with Kalaripaittu is that people even at the point we are in the discussion right now, we can say hypothetically a person who knows some fighting in the real world learns Kalaripaittu and then maybe can marry the two. But
Yeah,
a lot of people think that Kalaripaittu is can be applied in a real life fight situation as of now, just because they see the cool sparring videos, which they don't realize are fake. The guy who is getting beaten up is acting his getting beaten up. It's just like a karate sparring. People hold their sticks and wait until the kind of the protagonist in the Kalaripaittu display comes and beats them up. So that's not a real situation. How do we get that sport into a real fight, real combat sport situation?
see, like, okay, capoeira, right? You look at capoeira; it's fairly similar in that sense, right?
Yeah.
It's more like a dance form
Yes.
and an art. But then you see someone like McGregor applying what he took. He took elements
Yeah.
of capoeira, incorporated it into his own game, and
Hmm.
then he sort of modernized it. And then he,
Yes.
I don't want to sound cheesy, but like he weaponized it, right? He actually
Yeah.
applied it in real fighting. There's Tony Ferguson. You're talking about Tony Ferguson, Anderson Silva. These guys have, Wing Chun. A lot of people call Wing Chun bullshido, right?
Yeah.
And they mock Wing Chun. Hey, but these guys, they took certain elements of it
Yes.
in terms of reflection of strikes and whatnot, and they incorporated it.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a complete martial art,
Right.
right? So even a boxing, there are holes to it. Muay Thai, there are
Yes.
holes to it. So even in
Yes.
Kalari, there are holes to it. So that's
Yeah.
why I don't like. This is what Bruce Lee talked about, right? This was like the whole thing that Bruce Lee wanted to do.
Yeah.
He's the when people call Bruce Lee the father of MMA, it's because he is one of the first few people to realize that there's
Hmm.
no such thing as a complete martial art, and you have to take the best
Yeah.
out of everything. So
Yeah.
similarly, as much as there's this whole element of demonstration.
Hmm.
There are, I'm sure, I've never practiced it myself, but I'm sure that there are techniques which can be applied into real life combat
Yeah.
as an hand
Uh,
combat.
yeah. I think we have a clear understanding now. At least how can we someday have it? It would take a Kalari trained guy to take interest in MMA as well, and then kind of bring the two together. Because in the end,
It
you'll have
doesn't
to.
have to be. Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, yeah, go on. Or yeah,
No,
if
I was
not MMA, then yeah, wrestling or in any other real combat sport, he would have to show off his Kalari influences.
exactly. It doesn't have to be MMA. For example, like let's say
Yeah.
he does Kalari and then he decides he wants to do Muay Thai. Yeah, okay, so
Hmm.
like he can find ways to blend the two. And then from
Yeah.
there, it's okay. Oh, this judo
Yeah.
technique was cool. Let me
Yeah.
add that to my game. So, like for example,
Yeah.
was it Usyk? Yeah, Usyk, right? The boxer.
Yeah.
Before his
Alexander.
fight with Tyson Fury, he talks about how he did do wrestling and he
Hmm.
grappled
Hmm.
because and I'm pretty sure even Lomachenko talks about it.
Hmm.
These guys, it helped with their footwork, it helped with their flow, the clinch work.
Right.
There's a lot of implication to it. So,
Hmm.
you know, I do think that cross training is important.
Right. Now, this story of Usyk reminds me of a kind of unrelated thing that Daniel Cormier always used to say, and Chael Sonnen always said that Daniel Cormier is doing a wrong thing here. I've always wondered and meant to ask some MMA fighter about this. That did Daniel Cormier do a wrong thing by doing this? That he always said he trains with people who are way better than him, even before important fights. And Chael Sonnen always used to say in his podcast that he should not do that because you have to practice beating someone up as well. Don't just
Yes.
train with people who are beating you up all the time. But Daniel says that no, it keeps me humble, it makes me work hard. So fighting with the tougher guys, and because of that, do you think he lost those important fights in the end?
Look, I don't think that's why he lost the important fights. Because he was by the time he lost, he was already great. Like he been there, done that,
Yeah,
right?
true.
But I do think there's a hole in what he's saying. I disagree.
Hmm.
And I think even John Danaher would disagree. You need to have
Yeah.
three. You have to have people who are worse, as good, and better than you. Okay.
Yes.
So the reason you need to have people that are worse is to build confidence, to try things, right? Because you
Yeah.
know that, like, let's say I attempt a judo throw, okay, and I fall flat on my face.
Hmm.
The consequences are not as dire because, okay, let's say I fall flat on my face, the guy takes my back. Because
Hmm.
he's worse than me, I'm confident enough that I can scramble out and get out of this bad situation.
Hmm.
I can't do that with the guy who's better than me because the guy that's better than me will choke me out. The guy who is as good as me will choke me out. So I need to
Yeah.
use the guys who are worse for experimenting. The guys who are better than me, I need to use them, yeah, for the humbling experience and to find those holes in my game.
Right.
Like, let's say I'm executing a move incorrectly, they'll punish you for it. Then you ask them,
Hmm.
okay, what did I do wrong? So that's how keep adding layers and keep improving on your game. The guys who are as good as you, that's where you really test where you're at. So you take
Right.
what you take what you've got from the guys who are better, and you take
Yeah.
the experimenting that you've done, you blend the two, and you test it out on the guys that are as good as you.
Yeah.
And the guys that are as good as you are the guys that you're competing with.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Now, this question is for kind of the answer will be for, let's say, people who are going to be parents soon in the coming decade at least. Okay, even though you are not a parent yourself, but someone who has had parents who got their kids into sports pretty early on. How do
right.
parents get kids interested in physical activities? Just by forcing them in the beginning?
No, you shouldn't have to force them. First of all, I don't think you have to force them. It's just something like
Hmm.
it should be fun. It should just be fun.
Yeah.
If you're okay, this is one thing that I have a problem with, and I'm
Hmm.
quite passionate about this.
Yeah.
There is no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse that for anyone. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Obviously, unless you're like severely injured or like ill or whatever,
Hmm.
you should be active. There's no
Hmm.
excuse to be inactive. And this goes
Hmm.
for my parents, this goes for my my
Hmm.
grandparents. They should at least be walking or doing some sort of physical activity every day. Now, how
Yes.
do you make it? How do you not make it such that it's forceful? Just make it fun. Just make it fun.
Hmm.
See, like a lot of times, I've seen gyms. Okay, I'll talk about gyms where they're like berating the kids and they're like do this, do that. No, you did that wrong. Now you have to go do 100 push-ups. Look, if you're
Hmm.
if you're like 5 or 6 years old, okay,
Hmm.
and you're getting constantly yelled at and being forced to do things, chances are you don't enjoy it. Okay, so you're just
Hmm.
not going to do physical activity moving forward, and you're always going to associate physical activity with a negative feeling. Okay,
Hmm.
whereas when you make it fun, so for example, I've seen in Warriors Cove in Gurgaon, their
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu class. Okay, yeah, they'll learn an armbar or they'll learn something. Okay, whatever the technique is. Most of it
Hmm.
is just them running around, pushing each other, and just playing. Just being
Hmm.
kids. Um, Obviously, if you win, you get people clap, and then when that kid sees the other kid getting, like, let's say you lose, when that kid sees
Yeah.
the other kid getting clapped on, that motivates them. They want to get that feeling, and
Exactly.
the kid that. So it's just that you just have to make it fun.
Yeah.
You can't just like those kids and be like do this, do that.
Hmm.
It doesn't work that way.
How do you get an unfit person to work out? An
How do
unfit
I?
person, let's say, watching this and who knows that working out is good. Not he's not one of the plus size and body positivity brigade. Who knows that working out is important, but just somehow has never had a background in any sports and is now in his or her late 20s and has no clue how to start working out or how to get the motivation. what to do about them?
It's not motivation; it's discipline. First of all, it's discipline. Secondly,
Yeah.
I would say just start small. Okay, don't like, let's say whatever it is. Okay, let's say you want to start playing football. No one's saying that you have to be Ronaldo. No one's saying you have to be Messi. Just maybe start by kicking the ball around with your friends in a park or whatever. That's good enough. Naturally, once that fun starts, you have fun with your group of friends. And you associate it with a positive feeling. Naturally, you'll just naturally want to get better, because that competitive instinct will kick in. It will
Yes.
kick in with everyone. We all have that competitive instinct. So
Yes.
like, let's say, for example, you're running. Okay, you want to become a better runner. Start timing yourself. Just start timing yourself.
Yeah.
See how long, even if it takes you 20 minutes to run 1 kilometer. Okay?
Exactly.
If you start and you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to improve on this timing. That's enough. That's enough, because that feeling that you'll get when you go from 20 minutes to 19 minutes and 50 seconds, that's such a good feeling when you see that progress. So give yourself small targets, is basically what I'm saying. Don't look to become Messi overnight or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you're in your 20s, you're anyways not looking to become the next Messi, but either way, small target. Because if you're saying, okay, oh shit, I don't have a six-pack, in
Exactly.
3 months, but never lifted a weight, you've never dieted or done anything like that in your life, then you are being unrealistic. Especially if you don't have that foundation. So yeah.
How much do you run?
How much do I run?
Yeah.
To be honest, not very much. I don't like running because I don't like the feeling on my ankles.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of running in my life, so my ankles get beaten up. But I do more sprints than anything. I don't like to do long distance runs, because after a while it kills me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think running is a little overrated, especially in a combat sport situation, especially for jiu-jitsu and MMA. Would you agree with me?
Yes, I know. Like, I do think like sprints is the way to go. I don't think like
Yeah.
let's say the duration of my fight is
Right.
9 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever, right? Why do I need to run for 1 hour?
Yeah.
I don't need. I want to
Yeah.
be more specific. So I'll do sprints.
Some people run just because it was the way they got into fitness in the first place. So it's kind of their
That's fine.
happy place.
And that's fine. The
Yeah.
runner's high, like what people call the runner's
Exactly.
high. Real
Yeah.
thing. It's a real thing, and I don't. If that's how you, if that's what you like, then there's no harm in it. And I'm not saying
Right.
that I don't run at all. Like, once in a while, I do think
Yeah,
that
of
there
course.
is a huge benefit in building duration over a period of time, endurance over a period of time. But yeah, I think if you're training for MMA specifically, I would stick to sprints more than running,
Right.
more than long
How
distance
much
running.
how much calories do you think you burn in a day?
I can tell you today's actually. I can tell you how much I burned today.
Based on your
I have a fitness
smartwatch.
tracker.
Is
Yeah, I
that
have a
really
fitness.
accurate?
I mean, I don't know, but what I will say is that I use that and then I log my calories, for example, and it's fairly accurate. So
Okay.
today, my morning session. I didn't do an evening session because I'm here,
Oh,
but
we affected your fitness.
nah, not at all, not at all. Today is my light day, so.
Okay.
But on my light day, so typically I'll do. So I break it into blocks, right? I'll do heavy days, light day, or lighter day, and then heavy days. So today, Monday, Wednesday harder. Monday, Tuesday harder. Wednesday, Thursday I'll dial it down a bit, and then
Okay.
Friday, Saturday I ramp it up again.
Okay.
So today, Wednesday, on my lighter-ish day, I burned 1,075 calories.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how much I But yesterday, for example,
Hmm.
which was one of my heavier days,
Hmm.
would have been it was way more. It was 4,118.
Holy shit. What do you
Yeah.
do on Sundays? Do you not train at all on Sundays?
No, I don't train at all. I chill. And basically, I chill, rest, and most like I'll go on walks.
Hmm.
Just
Or
generally like when I
and no
say when I
stretchings and all.
no stretching, I do like so. Stretching is like a activity I do after my S&C sessions or after training. Like that's
Hmm.
a regular thing. Sundays is
Hmm.
literally no stress on the body. It's just to chill.
Hmm. And how many meals a day?
I So in the morning, earlier I never used to eat anything at all in the morning. I used to just have a cup of coffee and train. A cup of coffee and banana and train.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, earlier it was only two. Now I've started having something before training, like a
I see.
banana, a bar, like an oatmeal bar, and then
Okay.
coffee. Then I'll have
Okay.
lunch, and then once in a while I'll have a snack in the middle.
Okay. And this is just because of your off season, right? When you are preparing for a fight, then at that point, how many meals a day does it end up being?
Two, that's two.
Right.
Lunch and dinner, and then again, like even if I have something before training, it's very small.
Right. We have an
Pretty
interesting
close.
question here. Is there absolutely nothing one can do to improve their chin, like neck trap exercises or some sort of conditioning?
No, there is. Um,
Okay.
neck strengthening, for example,
Hmm.
like you mentioned, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's another reason you have to train your neck, right? Not only the
Exactly.
wrestling, but the ability to take
Yeah.
a shot, neck, and also
Yes.
just having a good cardio, having a strong uh, cardiovascular system.
Hmm.
Your ability, like if you can, basically like when you're tired, right? Like let's say you're like exhausted and you're
Hmm.
taking shots, you're more likely to go flat out. If you've got a
Yes.
strong system, it'll keep you going.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically that too. But like, hey, you take a clean shot, you take you take a clean shot. I also say like improve your reflexes, work on your
Hmm.
reflexes,
Hmm.
because like I said before, it's the punches that you don't see that actually hurts you the most. So
Yeah.
that doesn't really correlate to your chin strength necessarily, but yeah, in terms of absorbing shots, if you see the shot coming, then yeah, you can take it better.
Yeah. And this is also something that lay people who have never fought or never got into a combat sport realize. They don't realize that how much your neck strength matters for your chin in just the capability to absorb hits to your face. The neck strength is almost everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like even in F1, right? Like a lot of these F1 drivers talk about it
Yeah.
because, for example, like when you're in a car, the whiplash, like if your head's snapping back,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
get knocked out just from that. So
Yeah.
it's the same in the fight, like when you get
Yeah.
punched.
Yeah. Another question has come from him only. So it's kind of in context with this question. Neck strength. Given the boxing wrestling factory in Haryana, oh, this is a separate question. How hard would it be to throw in BJJ and get someone to put it all together to replicate that success?
Not very. In fact, that is one of the reasons Warriors Cove is doing a very good job, and it's one of the best gyms in India, if not the best,
Hmm.
because the head instructor. See, in India, we don't have many highly qualified jiu-jitsu practitioners. Okay,
Yeah.
in Warriors Cove, you have a black belt and two brown belts
Hmm.
under the same roof. So these guys have brought in a bunch of people from striking backgrounds, from wrestling backgrounds, and then they're teaching them jujitsu, and they're all putting it together. Now, the only thing that I would say is missing, although these guys have the understanding, and this is what's missing India wide, is having pure MMA coaches. Pure MMA coaches. I think there's only
Right.
a handful, Warriors Cove included, that are MMA focused.
Hmm. What do you think of Pooja Tomar's skills?
Her skills.
Yeah, I mean, how good do you think she is? Do you like her fighting?
Look, I support her because she's an Indian fighter and she's on the
Hmm.
UFC. She's representing us internationally, so I have a huge
Yeah.
amount of respect for her. And the fact is, she did win a fight in the UFC, so
Hmm.
huge respect for her. I was, with that being said, I was very, very upset with her loss, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I think that uh, she always had the kicking. She always had that kicking in her arsenal. We saw that in her last fight, and
Yeah.
then obviously in this, she landed a beautiful head kick.
Hmm.
Uh, she, I don't know. Like I'll tell you this: like when she was striking, like sorry, when she was punching and boxing, she was finding success when she was getting in the inside. And in fact, if you look at the judges' scorecard, she was up. She was up. Two judges gave her the first round.
Hmm.
Her grappling was shocking. Just
Hmm.
like I'm sorry, like I have to be brutal with that. It was just it's just not good enough to be in the UFC
Hmm.
to get armbarred like that against
Yeah.
a knocked out on basically her opponent was halfway done. Okay, just it was just shocking to me. You've knocked her out, you knocked her down, you've landed some nice ground and pound, and then you've gone for a crossface, which means you're looking for control. You're not looking to finish the fight.
Hmm.
Then I'm like, okay, fine, you want to do that, whatever. Maybe you're tired. Then to get submitted in the way she did, I was very upset. I was very upset to see that because that armbar that she got caught in, the setup
Hmm.
was as textbook as it gets, in the sense that it's white belt level stuff. And then she
Hmm.
got out of the armbar and then put herself back into the armbar.
Hmm.
That's not good enough. I'm sorry, that is not good enough. And there are better, uh, and we have better fighters than that. We do. I train with people on a day to day that know better than that.
That's
And
what was going to be my next question. Actually, are Anshul and Pooja Tomar really our best male and female fighters in the country, or are they losing because of bad cornering, or them being best is still not good enough for UFC? What is going on here?
look, in the case of Pooja, I don't think she is. I think she's even lost a few fights in India to
Hmm.
other Indian fighters, or
Hmm.
gone to close decisions. In
Hmm.
in the case of Anshul, look, there's no denying that the guy's good, and I will still maintain that he is a UFC level fighter. You don't win the road to UFC uh, without being UFC level. His fight against Mike Breeden when he got knocked out, he looked spectacular for the entire fight until he got knocked out. And he gets caught, man. Everyone gets caught. I know
Yeah.
Mike Breeden is basically a journeyman, but he got
Hmm.
caught. Like Islam Makhachev, he has a loss on
Hmm.
his record where he just got knocked, right? I'm not making a
Yeah.
comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, Islam is significantly better, but yeah, people get caught all the time. In the case of his last fight, I just don't think that he should have been in there with I don't even know how to say his name, Sai Khalid or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I think Sai Khalid was a lot better than he is. Like I said, 7-1, 7-1. It's not the same. It's not the
Is it
same.
bad
And I
cornering on the day?
that's not bad cornering. I think that's just bad management.
No, I mean,
I'm sorry.
for
I don't
specific
know.
moves, like in case of Pooja, are the coaches also nervous and therefore are suggesting wrong things, or the fighters are that nervous at because of being under the spotlight on the UFC day and therefore screwing up? Would they have not screwed up in some other situation with the same fighter in that same situation?
My opinion is that I don't know. I think they're just not confident enough in their grappling. I don't know where.
Hmm.
Like my brother and I were going through the gyms that they train at. So it's very kickboxing heavy,
Okay.
and a lot of punches. But yeah, I don't know how much grappling they're doing. I'm sure they're grappling, but
Hmm.
when you have a level of like you see it all the time in the UFC, when you have a strong, when you have a high level of confidence and a strong base of grappling,
Hmm.
your striking automatically improves.
Hmm.
Okay, in the case of Anshul and Mike Breeden,
Hmm.
I don't, when Mike Breeden is Anshul was obviously gassed. When Mike Breeden's walking up to him and barking
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
shouting it, all Anshul had to do was clinch up or even just take a desperate shot and ride out the rest of the round. I don't think he
Hmm.
was confident enough in his grappling to do so. Or I don't think he'd
Hmm.
done enough rounds in that situation to do so. That's my
Hmm.
opinion, and this is as his friend.
Hmm.
I don't mean to be a dick. I'm just saying what my opinion and how I
Hmm.
see it.
Yeah. What do you think of Mohammad Farhad?
I haven't really seen much of him, to be honest. I know that
Okay.
he's signed to Brave, but I haven't really
Yeah.
seen much of him, to be honest.
Okay. I really like his fights, but I think he also might be too old to do anything like get into UFC and stuff because he's 34 or 33 already. Yeah, he's actually 34 or 35. Um,
Look, the thing is, like, it doesn't. It's not all. It's not going to happen in the first generation. This is the first generation of
exactly.
fighters going to the Braves,
Yeah.
UFCs. We had a couple in PFL, I think. One FC
Hmm.
now. This is the first generation. Okay, you look at the first generation of any fighter. Like, I mean, now we're seeing people come from Dagestan, right? Before, who
Yeah.
was fighting out of Dagestan? Who was coming from
Yeah.
Georgia, right? Who was fighting out of Georgia and winning? Now
Yeah.
suddenly you've got two Georgian champions.
Yeah.
If you look at the UK, right, there was a point where Tom Aspinall and Leon Edwards were both the champions, and we just had the UFC London card full of many talented fighters. But like the previous generation, before Michael Bisping
Yeah.
eventually won, it's not like they were winning every fight and they were
Yes.
taking the world by storm. So it'll
Yeah.
take a few generations. And I think just the very fact that Pooja and Anshul are there fighting and representing India on a global stage on the global stage is big enough because it at least
Yeah.
now shows kids and people like myself and other fighters that we can get there. That we can
Yeah.
get there. It's attainable, right?
Yeah.
And now it's our responsibility to keep pushing the bar.
Yeah. And Ritu Phogat is pretty awesome. She'll never beat Stamp Fairtex maybe, but that weight division just doesn't exist in UFC. That's her only bad luck. Otherwise, she would be a UFC and a pretty good UFC fighter today.
I disagree, man. I disagree. I like
Okay.
I mean, she's on a 3 fight skid, all sub.
Yeah.
Like she's wrestles. She's a phenomenal wrestler. I can't take
Yeah.
away from that.
Yeah.
She's not developed her striking or jiu-jitsu for that matter to the
Hmm.
level where I think she'd hang in the UFC. She got
Right.
subbed in her last. Got knee barred in her last.
Yes. Yes.
Did she? Pretty sure she got subbed by Sam Fairtex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
No, I
I'm
don't
not.
remember.
Yeah, she got choked out by Sam Fairtex. So like again,
Okay.
I have huge respect for her and whatnot, and she's good, but I don't think I don't think she'd kill it in the UFC. She might win a few fights because, to be honest, the
Hmm.
UFC and women's MMA generally, it's just such a huge jump.
Yeah.
Like you have like fighters that are meh, and then you get Valentina Shevchenko like, or Weili Zhang. It's a
Yeah.
huge jump.
Yeah. Um, do you think Dana White will ever have that atom weight division in UFC just to attract fighters from Southeast Asia or South Asia? Because a lot of our
Perhaps.
good people are really short and skinny because of colonization, I guess.
I mean, I don't know what the reason is. There's several reasons, but
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know if he would. I just don't see it. The thing is, what is the benefit to doing that? If anything, like it's not like women's MMA is bringing them much money, aside from like Ronda Rousey's and like maybe
Yeah.
maybe Kayla Harrison, right?
Right.
Uh, so I don't
True.
see why they would create just another division for women's
Yeah.
MMA. If anything, they're probably trying to cut divisions. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Dana
already
White has
talking about
forever been trying to cut the featherweight division.
a flyweight.
Flyweight. Flyweight. Yeah.
No, if they take
So
away featherweight, that's a great division.
yeah,
But yeah, no, they
yeah,
are trying to take away featherweight. So yeah, they're always
yeah,
looking to cut divisions.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't see why they would add another one for the women,
yeah,
unless suddenly a superstar emerges out of atom weight or whatever, and then I
yeah.
could totally see the UFC making adjustments.
Yeah. It could happen if an entire country, a gigantic country like India, got behind a great fighter who just happens to be in atom weight. Then maybe
Yeah.
Dana White could think about it.
See, like for
And
example, like was
yeah, go on.
Cyborg, I think Cyborg and Nunes was a lightweight or featherweight. Well, I forget, but they basically created an entire division
Yeah,
such that
featherweight.
this, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
featherweight. Yeah, not lightweight. No, that'd be way too big. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but they basically created an entire division such that the two of
Mm.
them could fight. So
Mm.
yeah, I can see star power being a thing,
Yeah.
being a factor.
Yeah. And it's an interesting question here. Given our wrestling culture, it's strange that strikers with subpar grappling are the ones who have made it to the UFC. Now, I would like to answer it. Then we will ask you the same question as well. Let's say,
Yeah,
why do you think this has happened? I think this has happened because most people are into wrestling because there's a lot of government handouts to go for. You get jobs because of being a wrestler, but you don't get any jobs because you're an MMA fighter. Now,
correct.
Varun, your opinion here.
No, I agree. Like you hit it on the head. Like, why would you, uh, like, if you're a wrestler, right? Why would you go to the UFC? Like, let's say you're like a national pro wrestler. Why would you go to the UFC if you're getting
Yeah.
money from wrestling?
Yeah.
Why would you pick up MMA? Obviously, there are people that have, and now, and by the way, this is in the past. I'm talking about the past. But now
Hmm.
you're seeing like wrestlers are suddenly realizing, hey, actually, there's money in this MMA thing. I think we should give it a
Yeah.
try. Earlier,
Yeah.
no one knew what MMA was, so they're just
Hmm.
like, man, why the hell would I do this? I can just make
Hmm.
money from wrestling. I can just get my nice, uh, SIA funding. I can
Yes.
get a nice government job. I can get my army job, whatever it is. Just do that.
Hmm. Hmm.
In fact, that's still the case. I said before, I still think that we don't send our best wrestlers to the Olympics. I think our best wrestlers get a nice job, and then they take their foot off the gas, and then they're happy.
Exactly. Because everyone has to remember that no American wrestler is getting a cushy government job just because they won some medal 50 years back, or they played some sport 50 years back, and now you are a pot-bellied government servant for the rest of your life. That doesn't happen in the in those countries where you are saying that, oh my God, they are creating such great athletes. We are not. That's the reason. That's one of the reasons.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean,
do you think government should subsidize or let's say encourage people to get into MMA with these kinds of let's say carrots and attractions?
sure, why not? Why not? But it's also like, see, I'll tell you the biggest problem with MMA right now. It's
Hmm.
that is not an Olympic sport, but that's going to change because it got announced for the Asian Games last year. So once that happens, corporations first of all can start sponsoring MMA fighters. So in the CSR budget, for example, in a company CSR budget, the if you want to allocate your funds towards sports, it has to be an Olympic, Commonwealth, or Asian Games sport. Right? I could be
I see.
completely waffling here, but that's at least my understanding. So yeah, once it's an Asian Games sport, suddenly it opens a whole new world for MMA fighters. Now you can approach your GSWs, you can approach your Reliance or whoever it may
Hmm.
be. So that's one. Two, yeah, once it's an Olympic sport or Asian Games sport, whatever it may be, the government has to create some sort of federation, and they will provide some sort of funding towards the sport. So yeah, I think that
Now, if
eventually.
MMA does become an Olympic sport, will that benefit MMA at all, or do you think it will benefit even Indian MMA fighters? Because then they will again get into MMA just to go into Olympics and then complain about being a vegetable seller 20 years later, because they are not going to be at par with the UFC fighters once again. No one from UFC is going to fight in the Olympics for free, right? So, what does that get us MMA fans anyway?
So personally think it should be done in the way that boxing is. If you're a boxer, you in the Olympics, you're an amateur boxer. So you start with that, and then if you want to make big time money and you want to really build your legacy, then you go pro, and that's where the real money is. I don't have any problem with boxers wanting to stay lifelong amateurs and win in the Olympics and whatnot. Cuba does it, obviously for different reasons, but Cuba does it, and
Yeah.
they have many champions. Look at Mary Com. As much as we celebrate Mary Com, she's not a professional boxer.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily have a problem with it.
Plus, the boxing Olympic bronze is kind of weird, because even if you come at fourth place, you still get a bronze medal.
Yeah, no, it's usually like that. Even in some wrestling tournaments, in MMA tournaments, it's like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't necessarily have a problem with it, because for me, it's not even just about. If we dominate the Olympics and become great Olympic MMA fighters, I have no problem with it. For me, it's just having. It's just about having more people in India doing martial arts and reviving that martial culture. So it doesn't matter.
By the way, how does MMA take place in the Olympics? Because then it has to be completely cajoled and a cushy MMA version, right? Like the kind of boxing they have. It can't be full on, because you'll have to fight every day, maybe twice in the same day. It's not. It can't be real MMA then.
No, so I've fought tournaments. In fact, I fight in tournaments. So the way it works at the IMAF or like a Gamma or whatever, you fight every day. You weigh in every single day, but you fight under the amateur rule sets.
Right.
So puffy gloves and shin pads, although the shin pads are honestly like socks. So
I see.
Yeah, you basically fight under that. 3-minute rounds. No elbows, no knees to the head. So modified rule set. Now the one they're proposing for the Asian Games is even more different, because there's no cage. It's just a mat. And yeah, it's got a weird rule set, but yeah, you have to make those modifications, because you can't have guys like knee each other in the head and just getting cut wide open with elbows. 5-minute rounds, having the small gloves. It just wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. But it does work. It does work in the amateur scene.
Right. But do you think that will revive the martial culture? Because it already happens for boxing and wrestling, and it hasn't revived any martial culture in us. It has driven up the hunger for a government job instead. And plus MMA with amateur rules, which is going to be pretty ugly to watch even.
It's not.
Then should we really focus after it?
I promise you, man. MMA with amateur rules is not ugly to watch.
But with guards and stuff.
Have you ever watched?
And especially
MMA? Have you ever watched?
Yes.
You've not
and after watching real MMA on YouTube, the old fights.
Watch any IMF fight. Okay, watch any IMF fight. Doesn't necessarily have to be mine. Watch any IMF fight and tell me that those guys aren't getting damaged. Tell me
they are getting damaged, but I'm not feeling it. That's the problem.
Yeah,
the pain might be real.
Ask the fighters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, I'll tell you this. Even the shin pads that you see them wearing.
Yeah.
You get kicked by that hurts. Those shin pads are not shin pads. They're soft, like I said. It hurts. You see people get KO'd stiff, getting taken out in stretches. All the whole works. So yeah, it's not like I don't think that it'd make that huge difference. I think the only difference in terms of like why people want to stick to their government jobs and whatnot is that MMA is different from wrestling in the sense that you can still play wrestle. You cannot play MMA. If you're doing MMA and you want to do MMA or you want to compete in MMA, you want to be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't think that like obviously money is an incentive, but I think there's the incentive is much more beyond the money if you want to do MMA. I strongly believe that.
Another audience question here from the same person. The karate combat ring or slash pit is really cool. Could work in MMA, maybe better than a cage, definitely better than just a mat or ropes.
Yeah, I agree. I like, so for example, like what they are proposing is not like the karate combat ring. It's just a flat mat. It's really dumb. Like basically the wrestling mats. And if you get taken off the mat, you reset. Like it doesn't matter if you get a takedown and the guy goes off the mat, you reset standing. So it's kind of dumb. So that's why I do actually like the pit a lot more.
Yeah,
In fact,
yeah, go on.
No, I was just saying I'd like the pit in general.
That would put fighters like Khabib in a huge disadvantage, right? Who use the cage as a to team up, right?
I'm not the cage.
Right.
Yes and no. Yes and no, because then there is still like wait, are you talking about the mat wrestling or the
No, I'm talking about MMA in general. If MMA happens in such situations without a cage.
If it happens without a cage, it completely makes it different. But Khabib has fought without a cage, for example, like in his Sambo days and even his earlier MMA fights. It's just the types of takedowns that you use and whatnot are different. Because the thing is, as a striker, you also a lot of people use the cage to defend. It depends. You can use it to attack and defend. So yeah, I think it would. Yeah, it would definitely impact his game, but the types of techniques he'd use would be different.
Right. Yeah, of course, his father would make him train differently. What are some other polymath skills or interests?
Okay, so cricket's definitely one of them. Like I said, I love cricket, sports. I love cooking. I really enjoy cooking. To be honest. It's one thing. I've not done it since coming back, but I enjoyed doing it a lot. And when I say cooking, I also include eating. I know eating food sounds like, oh, this guy, everyone eats food. No. I genuinely enjoy finding restaurants, going to a place, enjoying the food there. So those are my two biggest hobbies. Music's a huge one. Listening to it, just meeting different artists when I can, because that comes to my brother, right? And so he's a music producer. So I see it from the way he sees it. Like there's way more to it than just what you hear. There's way more to it, the finished product. So yeah, I'd say these are my main music, sports, and food.
How did you take up cooking because of living alone in London and stuff?
Yeah, just living alone. Yeah. Well, I always loved eating. I've always loved eating. And then my mom kind of got fed up. So she's like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to do the basics. And then, the rest is up to you. So yeah, that's basically how I picked it up.
Right.
And then obviously university, cooking, and then COVID.
Yeah.
COVID came about, and then I got a bit more experimental. I had a lot of time on my hands, so I just got a bit more experimental. I'm not saying I'm Gordon Ramsay or anything like that, but I like cooking.
What kind of music do you like?
Oh man, it's like I don't want to be that guy, but literally everything. So I think growing up, my favorite music's like old school rock. So that's why I really appreciate the guitars that you have back. The one on the left that you have looks a lot like the one James Hetfield played, with Metallica.
Yeah, it's the same company. It's it's ESP only, but it's the LTD division, which is kind of like for poorer people. It's not it's ESP's poorer division, but people don't realize that for cheaper guitars, for under 20,000, 25,000 K guitars, this guitar is actually better than all other bigger companies as well. They make best guitars for poor people. ESP.
hey, you're not poor, man. I can see those 3 guitars hanging there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'd say that's sort of what I like old school rock, heavy metal, of course. Then it developed into rap, hip hop, pop,
Okay.
R&B. I'd say right now I'm more hip hop and R&B. And I do have my guilty pleasures in terms of pop, but a lot of
Yeah.
basically hip hop, R&B, and old school rock.
What do you listen to while working out? Do you need music, or do you just listen to music if at all you feel like it? It's not necessary.
It's not necessary.
During training.
During training, like it depends. If the coach puts on music, he puts on music. If not, I'm fine.
I see.
If I'm like in the gym and listening to it, really varies on the intensity. If I'm doing a more intense workout where my heart rate's up, then I like to listen to more like upbeat stuff. Like it could be EDM or house music, pop. If it's like lifting weights, and it's not like high heart rate, but it's like just an intense lifting session. I love listening to WWE theme songs, like wrestling theme songs.
They were really great songs.
And then some like hip hop songs.
Which were your favorite WWE entry theme songs?
Oh man, yeah. Have you heard Batista's theme song? Oh, that like I Walk Alone.
Yeah.
Oh,
Triple H and John Cena's were my favorite.
Oh, Triple H as well. John Cena obviously is great, but like for the gym, Brock Lesnar's gets me going as soon as I hear the music. That gets me going, and Batista's. Oh my god, I don't know what about it. It just gets me. Gets me ready for work.
In the early 2000s, even the theme songs for SmackDown and Raw were absolutely awesome.
Yeah, those are good. Nah.
And then Linkin Park did a theme song for them.
Who?
Linkin Park. Linkin Park did the theme song for SmackDown.
Which song was it? Say, I know Green Day had it at one point. What was the
Linkin Park? I think had it during 2008 or 9.
Was it Burn It to the Ground? Like Burn It to, I forget. Could be.
Even I can't remember. I just remember that it was a Linkin Park song and it was really awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Either way. Yeah. This is kind of what I listen to, and I love this kind of music.
Who are your favorite metal bands?
Metal. I'm not a huge metalhead, but like if I had to say, then it'd probably be Metallica. I've seen them live as well. I'm fortunate to have seen them live in Singapore.
Oh,
saw them in Singapore live. It was great. They're fantastic. They were really, really good. They were promoting their album at the time. I forget which one it was.
I see.
2018.
I see.
Yeah, it was good, but they played their hits and everything. It was great. It was great. And I don't know. Would you consider Guns N' Roses heavy metal?
No.
Not necessarily, right? Like they're not necessarily.
Hard rock. Yeah.
Hard rock. They're more hard rock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them. Led Zeppelin. I'd say Led Zeppelin is because people consider them the kind of fathers of heavy metal, no? So I'd say Led Zeppelin. But one group that I like, I don't like them. You know, I won't say I'm a diehard fan, but like the songs that I love, is Black Sabbath. I love Black Sabbath. In fact, my entrance song is Iron Man.
I see.
So, yeah, it's great. It's great.
I see.
I really like it.
I recommend you 2 bands for your training sessions, or if you want to fall in love with metal once again in your life. That's Monuments, great. A band from England, whom I have seen live at IIT Kharagpur, and Meshuggah, a Swedish band.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give it a try. Why not?
What all bands have you seen live?
Which bands I've seen live? Quite a few, to be honest. A lot of them in Singapore, some in England. I've seen a lot of artists, but if you're talking about bands, I saw Queen, obviously with Adam Lambert.
Okay.
Queen, that's my favorite band of all time, Queen.
Okay.
Then Guns N' Roses, Metallica. trying to think who else. When I was young, there was this one Indian band, the Indian rock band,
I see.
Euphoria. I seen Euphoria.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, that was when I was much younger though.
Right.
Who else? Those are the only bands I've seen live. Damn. Yeah, but in terms of artists, I've seen quite a few.
Okay. Now I have taken up a whole lot of your time, but these are kind of the last few questions.
Yes.
How Bengali are you in your upbringing? How much of Bengaliness and Assamese-ness has been there in your upbringing?
I mean, it depends how you want to measure it, but yeah, I think at home at
Food,
least.
poem, poetry, pop culture, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. At home, culturally very, very Bengali and Assamese, in the sense that, like, yeah, at home you'll eat Bengali food. I
Hmm.
don't eat as much Assamese food, Bengali food. At home, everyone's speaking Bangla or Assamese, depending on the side that my mom's
Okay.
obviously Assamese, dad's Bengali,
Yeah.
so depending on the side who I'm hanging with, yeah, that's what's being spoken at home. Although my Bengali and my Assamese both trash.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'd say at least culturally and values wise and the way the dynamics are, yeah, very much so. I'm very much in touch with my Assamese and Bengali side. And the reason I can say that with confidence is because whenever I have been to Kolkata or Assam, or whenever I do go to other Bengali or Assamese families, I don't
Right.
feel out of place. You know
I
what I mean?
see.
I don't feel like, oh, what the hell's going on? Yeah, it's just normal, So yeah, I'd say at least
Can
in
you?
terms. Can
Yeah,
I?
yeah, go on.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
ask. Sorry.
Finish your sentence.
No, I was just gonna say yeah. So in terms of like dynamics wise and understanding the language and basic level of speaking, yeah, I'm pretty okay. Values and culture wise, yeah. So for example, every
Right.
year we'll still celebrate Pujo at home.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily a Bengali thing, but even the poeting
Yeah.
that we did, like my thread
Yeah.
ceremony, was done in a more Bengali Assamese style. So yeah, I'd say that way.
Can you read Assamese and Bengali?
No, not at all. Not at all. I can understand. I can
I see.
understand completely.
Right.
My Bengali is a lot better than my Assamese is. To be
Okay.
honest, like so, whenever I'm in Kolkata, although I don't go there very often, but whenever I am, or I've been to Bangladesh as well, I was able to get by with my Bengali. So I'd say
I
it's not
see.
too bad.
I see. So, have you read any of the greats translated into English from Bengali or Assamese?
No, but when I was younger, my grandma used to read a lot of Abul Tabul to me.
Oh, nice.
I was that was
Nice.
like when you're a baby and you're going to
Yeah.
bed. Those were like our bedtime stories. Abul Tabul.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one question I've been meaning to ask from the beginning. How many languages do you speak?
Well, I'd say two. I'd say English and Hindi, but then
I
I can
see.
speak possible level of Bengali, and then I used to be pretty good at Spanish. I actually used to be pretty
I
decent at
see.
Spanish. I
Okay.
think like if I went to Spain, I would still be able to get by, or if I went to like a Spanish-speaking country, I'd still be able to like find my way around. But yeah, I used to be good at Spanish.
I see. So Indians don't have to learn anything other than English for living in Singapore.
No. Yeah. So basically, how it works in Singapore is like, so there's four main languages: Malay, Tamil, Chinese, and in English, right?
Oh,
So in local schools, I didn't go to a local school.
yeah.
I went to an international one. So in local schools, they streamline you based on your ethnicity. So if you're Indian, you
Okay.
learn Tamil, Malay, Chinese. In my school, you had a choice. For whatever reason, and this honestly pisses me off, is in my school, they had Chinese, they had Japanese, Spanish, German, French, basically, God knows every language under the sun, other than like an Indian language. Fine, you don't want to put Hindi,
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to put any of the other Indian languages, fine. But we're in Singapore, where one of the national languages is Tamil, and
Right.
your school and our school had mostly Indians in it, and this is true for any international
I
school in
see.
Singapore.
I
Not one
see.
of them has an Indian language in it. It
Oh.
really pisses me off, and to this day. But yeah,
Hmm.
you get it. Unlike the local school system, where you basically get streamlined, in the international school system, you get to pay.
I see. Did your parents also not have to learn anything other than English for living in Singapore? Like, how do you even converse with the fruit sellers on the or the street vendors and stuff?
Everyone
English.
speaks English there. Everyone speaks English there.
Oh,
Even
I
if
see.
you speak English, okay, so even if you don't speak English, you speak Singlish, which is
Hmm.
like its own thing. It's like a mix. It's like its own dialect almost. Like you speak English with like random Chinese, Hokkien, Malay,
I
Tamil,
see.
whatever words just thrown in randomly,
I see.
Um, and even the English, like for example, okay, like, hey, do you want to do a podcast tomorrow? You just say
Hmm.
can, right? You don't say yes, let's do it. You just say can, and that
Hmm.
makes it, it's understood.
I see. I see.
Understood. So yeah, um, that's basically yeah. I'd say I
Hmm.
speak English as well. I'd
Hmm.
include that in the list of languages.
Hmm. By the way, I just remembered this question. I was planning to ask you this. I forgot about it. But what do you think of motivational speakers and stuff? Have you ever felt the need for those? What do you think of Andrew Tate and people like them as motivational
Yeah,
speakers, not his controversial professions and stuff?
you know what? Like I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Because I think that people find value in a lot of these things. I think you- if you find someone, doesn't matter who it is. Hopefully, it's not
Hmm.
someone crazy like Hitler or some shit like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you find someone and they resonate and their message resonates with you and it gets you going and it inspires you to do whatever it is, I have no issue with it. In fact, you
Hmm.
brought up Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate got me out of a really dark period of my life.
Yeah.
Sadhguru, for example, got me out of a really
Hmm.
dark period of my life. Andrew
Hmm.
Tate gets a lot of hate for his controversy, but if
Hmm.
you actually sit down, and whenever I tell people this, they get pissed, but I always say, like, the guy, if you actually look past like his satire, which a lot of it is,
Yeah,
a
of
lot of
course.
him
It
is
is satire.
a lot of
That's
his
what people
stuff.
don't get.
If you're not an idiot and you
Yeah.
actually listen to the stuff rather than just reading
Yeah.
tweets and going
Yeah.
through reels, you actually
Yeah.
listen to the whole discussion. A
Yes.
lot of it is a joke, and if you actually
Yes.
listen to what he says, you find a lot of value. For example, when
Yes.
we were talking about the first time I lost, right, in Tajikistan, and how I was feeling like crap. Um, Listening to his talks,
Hmm.
and this was around the same time he was coming up. Listening to him talk
Okay.
is you get out of that dark place, because I was like, basically his message was like, stop feeling
Hmm.
sorry for yourself. Okay, no
Yeah.
one's gonna help you other than yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
Get up, work hard, and get better. And
Yeah.
honestly, he put it so bluntly, and I was just like, you know what? That's right. Like, what am I doing? Like, what kind of basically being well, to use your earlier phrase, a pussy. I'm being a
Yeah.
pussy. Like, what am I doing, dude? Like, I'm just sitting here feeling sorry for myself instead of
Yeah.
picking myself up, dusting myself off, and working, and getting better. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that I have no issues with motivational speakers. If someone's
Hmm.
willing, if someone's inspiring you to do better, then by all means.
Hmm. Okay then, Varun, thanks a lot. It was a huge, long podcast, but we got to
No,
discuss a lot of stuff. Thanks a lot.
as you can tell, I love talking, so it was my pleasure.
Okay. Then thanks a lot for joining the live stream, guys, and thanks a lot, Varun. Hope to have you back pretty soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good night, guys. Good night, Varun.
Good night.
যদি সবাই ফিরে যায় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা সবাই ফিরে যায় যদি গহন পথে যাওয়া চরণ তলে একলা দলরে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি আলো না ধরে ওরে ওরে ও আলো না ধরে যদি ঝড় বাদলে আধার রাতে দুয়ার দেয় ঘরে তবে বজ্রানলে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে আপন বুকের পাঁজর জ্বালিয়ে নিয়ে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে